is.
Well, that was some video footage of the Death Star getting blown up yesterday. That came between us and the sun yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Thankfully, the British did not have them in this movie, or we would have lost.
Right.
Yes.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's no moon. That's all we know, right? That's all we can be sure of.
Yes, that's right.
But if you have the dagger, you can go into the wreckage and find the MacGuffin that'll lead you to the place where you can get another MacGuffin to go to the...
I don't know what you're talking about. That's not a story that exists in my brain.
That's all right. I don't like it. They lost that movie, so it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, what wasn't Palpatine's plan to have her kill him?
I don't know.
Just saying.
What?
But go ahead.
Oh,
this movie.
Let's talk about a better film.
Much better.
Yes.
Much better.
Welcome, everybody. I'm glad some of you could last minute come in, and Matt and Dempsey and Peter.
Glad to be here, man.
How the Empire attacked Earth in Revolutionary War times.
Yes.
They came from behind.
Defeated by a guerrilla force, with primitive projectile weapons.
They didn't account for our muskets at all.
That's right. That's right.
No. Went right through those stormtrooper armor.
Yeah.
Went right through the stormtrooper's armor. Just cut right through.
Around inside and switch.
Those old 50 and 60 caliber musket balls are no joke.
Dude. Oh, yeah. Hey, you aren't kidding, man. This can do some serious damage. No. Not to mention some of the cannons they had back here.
And we'll get to the scene later where they just straight up open the door and fire a cannon into a crowd. So we'll get to that.
Yeah. I saw a video of a guy shooting ballistic gel dummy, the head, aiming at the head. It took the head off. I mean,
that was a Graham Thumb video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's no joke.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's a bigger caliber than Dirty Harry used. He only had 44.
Although it had less piercing mobility. Funny enough, muskets couldn't penetrate full plate armor, but
yeah, but you wouldn't want to get hit by one while wearing that. The concussive force still would go through.
The padding would absorb it. Really? It wasn't muskets that stopped armor. It was the fact that it was very easy to have 100,000 dudes with muskets versus you know what I mean? The number of them, but
right.
Mm-hmm.
And modern soldier armor is actually in some ways designed in some ways like medieval armor was. It's like a weird full circle. Weapons pierce armor, armor goes away, new armor is developed, weapons become useless. It just keeps going on and on. Now, not to go on a sidetrack, but it's relative here. They're actually working on anime style power armor for soldiers now.
Yeah,
which would make like M16s and things like that like irrelevant.
Right. Well, from what I understand, they've been working on that for about a decade or two now. So if we know about it, then what do they have that we don't know about?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they probably have way better than that.
Yeah.
Although I would love to get inside of a mech one day. I think that would be awesome.
Gord, I know you're praising the Mohawk, but I prefer to go with the No-Hawk.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he's right. They do stop horses. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they were using them all the way up through World War One.
Yeah.
Oh, but what is that line? I want to say it's. I don't know what it's from, but a dead horse's cover, a live one is chaos. Don't know what movie or show that was from, but yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if that's not from a real manual.
True.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that sounds very reasonable to me. I mean, a horse just makes you a bigger target, and your head sticks up above the crowd.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yep, like the movie The Patriot, where they were aiming for officers.
Although it is notoriously difficult to hit a target moving that fast.
True.
Combine that with how inaccurate guns were up until about 150 years ago, beyond about 50 feet,
Right. Yeah. Even with rifling.
Yeah. Well, it was a change to a bullet versus a ball that gave range accuracy.
Yeah, because the spiral versus the tumble. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm just going to get this out of the way and I'll let it go. Apparently that was from Firefly. I totally forgot. A dead horse's cover, a live horse, great Firefly. Pile of panic. That's Mal from Firefly.
Nice.
Anyway, back to what we have on top.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, this show, wow. I was so surprised by this. I was expecting to be kind of bored or maybe a little bit entertained by a war style setting, but I was blown away with how good the characters are in this and the scoring in this, the acting in this. Wow, the sets are amazing. Like, this was crazy good.
This is a John Ford movie, man. There's no,
right.
I mean, actually, I was thinking about it, Jake. We kind of mentioned this movie way back when we did our John Wayne, John Ford thing that blew up into a whole bunch of John Ford and his brother movies and all that. You know, we kind of, this is one of the movies we mentioned because we talked about how many movies Henry Fonda did with John Ford too, you know? And although it's funny enough, the author, this is based on a book, and I had to look this up because I know it's based on a book, but I had to look it up. Apparently, Henry Fonda and John Ford adapted a couple other of this guy's books. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And,
yeah. So I thought I'd give us a little more context to show where this happened.
So, do you want me to go? The strategic value of this is that Mohawk Valley is a pathway, basically a clean pathway between where, like, or for instance, the French and Indian War and other conflicts, like you had to travel through it. It was the best way to travel from where the French were and their Indian allies were to where the British were and their Indian allies were, back and forth, if you know what I mean. I'm not the most military astute way of saying it, but like any other way, you had to go through dense forests or cut trails or rough mountains, and transporting large amounts of men. Even Indians didn't like doing that, you know.
And supplies
and
the fresh water was huge too.
And also, it's where the Mohawk Indians lived, right? But although I think we might only see actually one Mohawk Indian in this entire movie.
Right.
That's Brick-a-Brack or Brick-Jack, or whatever his name was. You know, which was weird because when I you know, because there still should have been a lot of Mohawks there at this time. Although
I was looking into some of the history, they eventually kind of moved westward to join up with like one of the Iroquois tribes.
Oh yeah, because Mohawks
at this time they shouldn't have. They have completely evacuated the area.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
What's up, Roman? Yeah, they're crazy. The amount of Indians that used to be in that area versus the ones that were there at the time of this. I don't know if they were able to accurately represent just how many natives were in that area. There was a ton because of all the trees and the wildlife and the water and.
Well, just in the northeast of the U.S., that was definitely a higher population as opposed to where the plains, where they had to travel a whole bunch and follow food. And they were much more able to settle down and kind of actually start farming and keep their kind of own territories.
It was also safer up here compared to, you know, like where the Comanche were, who were just killing everyone left and right. You know, it's because contrary to what certain political points were, the American Indians were just as warlike as their European cousins. You know,
so and there were several exterior shots of this film that I'm suspicious if there's not like a dedicated area up in that kind of eastern New York area for filming that looks straight out of like the same scenes from The Last of the Mohicans. And I know that the Mohicans and the Mohawk are not different, or actually are different, because the Mohicans, if I remember correctly, were a little bit further east along the border of New York. But it's definitely a lot of that same kind of similar territory. I was getting a lot of the same kind of feels from it, even though it's different time periods. Mohicans being pre-revolution and this being post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was filmed in Colorado, and let me pull it up here to be sure.
I thought about looking it up, but it looked so similar. I was convinced that it was filmed in the same area. So yeah, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Filming location was Aspen, Mirror Lake, Duck Creek Village, and Utah.
Okay. Oh, I bet some of those exterior areas were a lot of like northern Utah where it starts to get more wooded.
Yeah.
So, yeah. By the way, sorry if my dog's breathing issue comes through on the microphone. She's old.
Oh, that's all right.
Dogs get a pass.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah. Cats almost a pass.
Right.
Not quite.
I just need to start bringing my dog in. That way, if I start breathing into a microphone, I can blame it on Mogar.
Oh, for those listening, by the way, the structure of the way this town is set up with that one fort. If you're curious, that's kind of how, and you're watching Shogun, that's kind of how Japanese towns are set up with like one fort with these disposable houses that they just build after earthquakes all the time in one fortified location. So it's a similar sort of setup.
Right.
I mean, that was pretty common through history in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Right.
And you'll see a lot of the John Ford crew in this movie.
Yeah. Very tastefully done here, the way that they introduced everything. I like this whole, it looks like they knit it. It's just a cool aesthetic.
The first thing I saw when I saw the house on the left was the Amityville Horror. It was the first thing that went through my mind.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, I was reading trivia for this. Henry Fonda is a direct descendant of the Fondas that settled the Mohawk Valley.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
In the mid-17th century. So,
that's pretty cool. You get a chance to play one of his ancestors. Huh?
Yeah. His fifth great-grandfather, Dow, I think, Julius Fonda, who was too old to fight in the Revolutionary War, was killed and scalped in 1780 by an Indian that supported the loyalists.
Wow. And this is one of the movies that John Ford's brother plays as action, by the way. John Ford, his brother is, although I guess if you're a filmer, you know it, but he's also a famous director and all that too. But his career goes earlier to the silent film era. But he's in this film as an actor too.
Right. It's amazing how beautiful this woman is. It's weird to see a woman to be this classically beautiful in a time before people mutilated themselves as often as they do. This woman just kind of looks like a dream when you look at her. And she's very convincing. I love this opening there. This gave me flashbacks of being a kid going to church.
She's been in a lot of movies. I mean, if you see her, she's a theater actress and all that.
I thought the minister kind of looks like Salty a little bit.
Yeah. He'd be much taller though, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, Roman, everybody in this film looks like they smell better than they probably would have historically.
Yeah, true. And their teeth are better, probably.
Yeah.
Especially once they get to the frontier and they're actually having to like rough it as opposed to being city bound.
Right.
I mean, that is kind of funny.
I took a bath last week.
That is a trope. Medieval people actually did bathe. You know
I'm not saying they didn't, but at the same time, when you spend 12 hours working a day and then you have, a brief bath at the end of the day, you're going to spend at least 12 hours smelling pretty rough.
We're just excessively cleanly compared to them.
Yes.
Right. These are just the smells of life, basically,
Yes.
Right.
And I do want to go ahead and call out the colorization of this is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, highly believable. I mean, this whole scenario, like the way that they have this shot set up here with the window in the background, like everything is just so well done, purposeful.
Yeah, because I mean, especially when you have films that were shot in black and white initially, they set up a lot of contrast, the lighting and the shadow to kind of differentiate between things. So sometimes when you go to the colorization process, it doesn't really translate well. But I think they did a really good job with this.
Agreed.
And it's like right from the wedding to the wagon.
Right.
Yep.
To go to the frontier.
So yeah.
Like, thanks for walking me down the aisle, Dad. I'm going to the frontier. See you later.
Right. Yeah, the rebellious teenage kid going out, because it doesn't really explain how old she is at this point, right? Or was that did I just miss it? Okay. Yeah, so that's the way I took it. Was she was like the stars in her eyes. I'm gonna go make my own way in the world. Rich kid.
I mean, Matt could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think historically she probably would have been anywhere from like 15 to 16 here.
I think she's probably a late teen, and he's probably an early 20 type age. If I remember.
Right.
I
think he had already had.
Historically, Henry Fonda looks a lot older, obviously. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, the character obviously had time to prepare. So
yeah.
I was thinking, surely he told her that we're going to be living in a one-room cabin till we get a bigger house built.
Right. Well, I mean, he obviously didn't fill her in on a lot because their first couple minutes in that cabin.
Well, I think she knew but didn't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she knows we're going to live in the frontier. There's
a difference between being told when you have kind of like this idealistic kind of fairy tale idea of what the frontier actually is, because I'm sure she's heard tales of it. You get these gruff men coming back from the frontier talking about all the things that they've done. They're only telling you the good things. It's like social media. They're just bragging about stuff that makes them look good. They don't tell you about the winters where they nearly died.
Yeah,
I would imagine this was Utah.
Right. Exactly.
Probably.
Yeah, it does kind of look like that.
And also, I would think,
the house too. It's like right to trees, right after they get out of the gate.
Well, also, this is basically like probably like late early 1776 time period.
Right.
So they're probably thinking war is about to start, but they're not sure. So maybe they think she might be safer away from where the British are attacking. They're not knowing the extent of that war that would go with the guerrilla warfare and all that.
Good point.
Right. Yeah. Because it's still extended out because there was a point when they called out the end of it.
Well, that's another thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say with the Indian tribes, because a lot of the American soldiers and leadership were part of the British, they had relationship with Indian tribes, and no one knew how all the Indian tribes were going to break and all that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, because I mean it's very easy for us now just to think about the natives that lived here before, but they are far from a blanket universal nation.
Correct.
Right.
And so
they were not a monolith.
You could have tribes that lived 5 miles apart from each other that would go very opposite directions.
Right.
Yeah.
And feuds between tribes, or they grow up being like, you hate these people, and they grow up being like, we hate these people. And
right.
Oh, the American Indians had, I mean, the scale of European war was more than any other country, but in terms of the amount of war that happened for their population, that they were just as warlike,
Yes.
Right. Yeah, they just grew up without the strategies and gentleman's warfare and stuff like that. They were, guerrilla warfare. And we came over here and we're all standing in a big line. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, not so much that. I mean, it's really
just different strokes.
Okay. The economy is a function of population density. War is a function of the economy. You know what I mean? So they were more spread out, so to speak. So those mass formations wouldn't benefit them as much. Whereas in Europe, you can throw 100,000 man army at someone. I mean, they couldn't do it here because neither side had the troops gathered here at the initial part of the Revolutionary War. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's a good point. But like if the British had landed, say, the amount of troops, the American Indians had no response to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's the amount of force you can throw when you have multiple groups of 10,000 dudes shooting at you. It's
right.
I got to call out this innkeeper here, because we all know people like this in the service industry that's just a little too nosy. Look, we're just having our meal.
Yes.
We're renting a room. We don't want to talk to you. Here's your money. Go away.
Right.
Okay. But I want to counter that with, this is a John Ford thing. If you watch in every movie he ever does,
it is.
When he gets to tell the audience about the characters, there's always scenes like this with a nosy innkeeper or someone nosy in a bar. Think like
I get it for as far as like a movie making trope, but yeah.
Right.
But he does it because a lot of scenes in this, like everyone knows The Quiet Man from John Ford and all that, right? A lot of scenes in this, especially because some of the actors are the same, remind me of so many of those scenes that he did 30 years later or whatever, or in other films. Like he just, it's like he has, I don't want to say he has him canned or whatever. Like, oh, I'm going to put the in scene there. I'm not saying he plans it that way, but his sense of aesthetic of how, and like even look at the framing on this shot right here. Okay.
Right.
John Carradine is a famous, right here. John Carradine is a famous villain actor, for those who don't know that. Okay. And centerpiece, you have your beautiful woman highlight in light, shadow in the dark is the famous villain actor in the dark clothes with the match staring at them.
Eye patch.
So,
I mean, even not knowing, because I don't know modern films, let alone older films like this. So not knowing anything about these actors, just the aesthetics of him, the framing, plus they gave him a very recognizable silhouette. So that when we see him later, we don't need to see his face. We don't need to do the modern Hollywood thing where they like pan in on his face and we're like, oh, it's that guy.
Right.
You immediately recognize
like
he's
the
in
eye
the
patch.
dark and the shadowy and cold. He has the fire going, like all the ominous stuff is by him. And the angelic light is by the beautiful, innocent woman.
Right.
Yep. Who's centered in the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really good cinematic work right there.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep.
Howdy, Cannoli. Hope Vegas treating
Ciao.
well.
Hey, Cannoli.
But yeah, as soon as he
Cannoli.
stood up, I could tell there was something going on with this character. Like immediately, which is really good because it's nice to have clear lines of who is where.
Yeah.
And you know, he comes up and talks and there's tension around it. There's like actually palpable tension. And there's, especially when contrasted to the goofy innkeeper that was just here,
Yeah.
This
and just
new guy
his
comes
style,
in and it's like, whoa.
And just his style in general, and I'm sure it was, I don't know all the styles back then, but I know it's not just this trope, but that tricorn hat with that coat is very highwayman style. That's what it goes in my head. It's like somebody who's kind of up to no good. They're looking out for themselves and they're trying to take advantage of other people. I mean, later on, obviously he's working not just necessarily for himself, but for like the loyalists and the Tories, as they say. But you can tell just from his aesthetic that there's something much different about him.
For modern people who don't know who John Carradine necessarily is, you might know his more famous son in my era, David Carradine, who passed away a few years ago. Kung Fu.
Right.
Yeah. But
now this character here, he's based on a real person. I can't remember his name though.
Yeah. Well, this is a historical fiction novel.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. This. But yeah, this guy. So he did a really good job. You can tell right off the bat with this guy. He was good.
Yeah. It's kind of weird that they're so forthcoming with information to this guy.
Yeah.
He asked them like where they're going and what. Right. And like are there Tories in that area?
Like, no. Yeah. If you remember, Jacob, we did Dracula, the original Universal Dracula movie. In a lot of the Universal sequels, John Carradine played Dracula.
Okay.
Nice. I mean, I can kind of excuse them giving up information. I mean, aside from like what political party are you? Which I guess maybe during that time that might have been more of a common question for people who are kind of looking for a fight.
Right.
Or today when people are looking for a fight. But I mean, as far as them being kind of like newlyweds and excitable about, where they're going and their new life that they're starting, I can kind of get why they might be willing to be a little bit more forthcoming with things.
Well, no, they have to because they know the wars are going to happen. And the Tories are loyalists who are going to fight for the British. And obvious, you know what I mean? So this isn't like our what party are you, who you going to vote for? This is actually going to come to a fight,
Right. Who are you backing? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they just kind of want to keep to themselves is all the kind of what you're getting from them. They just want to go off and live their own life. They don't really want to get involved in it.
As an interesting side effect to this, right? Because it's so in a lot of Tories, right, after this war, had to leave America and go to England, basically. They were exiled, and
or Canada.
So it was,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this scene where she's like, "I just wanted to check and see if you love me as much as I love you." It's very of its time.
Yeah.
Very manly man thing to do here. Like. I don't know. He has a couple of those moments in this, but he's got the patience of a saint, this freaking character. It's amazing.
Well, except for the slap.
Well, no, he was just trying to get her to calm down. Like, he didn't even mean that in a bad way. Like I was saying, it's a product of its time. Like, that was just how you calmed women down.
People still slap each other to get out of the shock. I was slapped by a doctor once when I was panicking.
I kind of want to ask Roman, since he has comments on Agent Scully's pantsuits, if he wants to comment on her dress, because he's apparently really into women's fashion. So Roman, if you have comments on her dress, we'd like to hear it.
Yeah. Nice looking for back when you had to make them by hand, huh? But she was rich, though. I suppose she could have had them from a store or something.
Right.
Well, not just volunteer, not just because they were no longer British, but because they were basically leave or have all your stuff taken or die. I mean, there was very little tolerance, like as you might expect.
That's the thing. If the traitors win, all the loyalists are the traitors now.
Yeah.
There we go. Roman has ruled. It's a fabulous dress.
There we go. Yep.
By the way, this actress, Colbert, Claudia, something, whatever. She's Claudia famous.
Colbert,
yeah. Yep. She's famous. She played a Cleopatra in Cecil B. DeMille's Cleopatra, and unlike modern actors, she actually looks like Cleopatra.
Right? Yeah. Bing.
I love this. He's like, "Hey, look, we're home. We're home," and he's all excited that they're home.
Right.
She looks at the house like,
right.
And
she's just this is when reality is setting in.
Right. Yeah. Right. As she walks into the house and realizes that that's it. Yeah, it was probably the whole house the size of her room back in that giant house she was in before.
Yeah, and that's even that house right there. That is no small thing.
Right.
To have the resources, you've got glass windows, you've built everything that's sealed up nicely. I've got an ancestor. I don't know how far back removed he was, but his cabin is still standing in one of the Virginias. I forget exactly where.
Nice.
And it's a 2-story thing. And he basically would have been the equivalent of like a multi-millionaire at the time to build that. And it is still tiny compared to most people's houses these days.
Right. Right.
I read
because it was built for function, not for, grand, look at me, big house.
Which is why the china in the corner looks funny.
Yeah. Don't quote me on this, but I read a paper. I read a paper in my 20s or early 30s. It was in a journal, the National Scientific paper, about when it happened, where like people like up to a certain point, like people would live in one, like parents, grandparents would live in like one big room, and people didn't have their own rooms. Then there was something happened, I want to say in the mid to late 1800s, where all of a sudden kids got their own room, parents got their own room.
Right.
It was like there was. Oh, it's been so long. Like an economic explosion that allowed more bigger houses for less the same cost, and it's a really fascinating topic. But I remember reading about years and years ago,
right around the Industrial Revolution and whatnot.
Yeah, something. Because it's something. I don't know if it was really drugs, the Industrial Revolution, or the population density economics, but it was a fascinating paper because it exploded worldwide in any developed, like Europe, the U.S., even East Asia, and all that. There was this massive increase in square footage per family. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like the whole world was like the first 10 minutes of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
See you, Gordon. Have a good show.
Later, Gordon.
I just want to point out that they get in there. They've been rained on. And he tells her, you better get out of those clothes. You're going to get cold. Good thing she didn't start immediately doing what he said. She turns around and sees blue-black.
Right.
Or blue-back.
Right. Another thing that was failed to be mentioned to her ahead of time that would have been super useful. Hey, by the way, there's this Indian who walks in our house all the time.
I just assumed that he was like he's basically kind of like the caretaker when he's gone. He's like his buddy who's like, hey, could you house sit for me?
Right.
So I've added this book to my list of books I will never live long enough to read. And I'd be fascinated with the background of Gil Martin, and like you know how if you ever read any of these frontier novels like Fenimore Cooper stuff or whatever, like they just establish these, like, again, these characters, these backgrounds, they never really go into, but they establish with lore plans. I'd be fascinated if there's some sort of background, maybe in like the French and Indian War or something like that, with Gil and this guy and this area. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Calm down.
I don't know if you noticed that, but he didn't even touch her. When he slapped, it went in front of her face and didn't even touch her face.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you can't expect
now you're being extra misogynistic by saying she overreacted. I see what you're saying, Jacob. I see. We're on to you.
He's saying Henry Fonda's slap was so manly, just the air of it shocked her.
That's right.
Yes, exactly.
He was actually slapping her grandkids.
Yeah. The reverberation of that slap are echoing today. It's the cause of all feminism.
Will echo through eternity. This slap now will echo in eternity.
That's right.
Well, all feminists still feel the phantom slap across their face, and they don't know what it is, but they know it's wrong.
Awesome. But yeah,
I know something like that wouldn't have been uncommon, especially then.
Right. Well, yeah, but what happens after that is way worse.
Yes.
Where he leaves and comes back.
Yeah.
I love this character. He's awesome.
Yeah.
And Brick back is probably like, you could have just married one of my Christian Indian women and hadn't had this problem. You know, it's like,
right. Yeah. Well, he's described as a better Christian than most of us.
Yeah.
Or all of us. Better Christian.
Something like that.
Yeah. Take this. You have a fine woman here.
Like, I brought you a half of, and he stopped by to bring him a half of a deer. It's just like,
right. That's a hell of a present. That's a lot of food, man. Well, depending on how big the deer is, that's a lot of food. Good man. Like, thanks a lot, dude. Good looking out. Oh, and by the way, take this antler and beat the snot out of her.
That's a part 2.
I mean, that was probably the Indian guy's like wedding present,
Right. Good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Oh, good point. It's like, here, make her a good woman. Spec her around a little bit. I appreciate. I mean, I don't think that any of us really expected it, but I kind of appreciate that. Like, you can see that he kind of gives thought to it. Like, he kind of smacks it in his hand a little bit, and like he's thinking about it. But then he sets it up on the mantle, and and he's the nice guy.
This is the thing. So if you mess around, it's right here. Instead of throwing it in the fire, getting rid of the thing, he's like, this. We're going to put it on display right here in case I need it. That is an antler, right? Or is that just a stick, or what is it?
I think it's just a stick, but it straight up looks like a crowbar. I know it's not a crowbar. But it looks like something the Joker would take after Jason Todd.
It's a frontier crowbar.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Jay.
He's like holding it.
The baby powder in your hand. He thinks about it. He's sitting there. He's thinking about it. He's like, nah. She doesn't need it yet. He realizes right around there, that she's in shock. She has no idea, but she's ready for it.
Yeah.
Right. This is just her initial thing. She's down. She's just flipping out a little bit.
Now, for those watching this,
I don't even want to know what you would do with that.
This movie has a lot of time skipping in it. Okay.
Yeah. A lot.
I mean,
and
it's subtle. It's subtle, but it's clear in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like, I think it takes place over like 3 years or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Because like between now and then, obviously she's settled in more. They've cleared land. They're farming.
Yeah.
Right. And they're still clearing and still building, and they build up a fence line around it now, and have their clear areas dug out, and they're all used to the life. But he still comments on the softness of her hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been
which
that
we actually,
long. So we know
which
it
we
hasn't
actually
been like
see a little bit later when somebody looks at her hands that they're obviously not soft anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a cool way of showing it without just outwardly being like 5 years later,
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think back then they just, the storytelling was so much better in the sense of they didn't clutter these movies. I'm not going to do the rant, Jake. I promise I won't. But my biggest pet peeve with films for the past 30 or 40 years is how excessively long they are.
Agreed.
And like now, they're time skipping, but you can figure it out from the way they're doing it. The cues, like you're saying, the change in the characters, the seasonal changes, the fact that all that dry hay was there, and like you could pick it up as going to pay attention. Whereas nowadays they'd have some guy like they'd show scenes where some guy goes, "Oh, in 2 months we'll be in Abercrombie," and then they'll show them like some speed up frame. I mean, it just kills me the way they pad these modern movies out.
Yeah, agreed. With nothing.
Yeah, I mean, modern movies are basically SpongeBob when they say 5 hours later.
Right. And let's put a bunch of slow-mo in this 3-hour movie because it isn't taking long enough.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. But yeah, these cool little cards that they do put up every now and then, I like that aesthetic of it. It goes really well with everything else. It doesn't take you out of the movie. It's just a quick piece of information, and we're right back into these beautiful set pieces. Like that's
right.
Beautiful.
I wonder if they built this for the movie, or if that was built for using in these type of movies, or if that's someone's actual property.
I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was something that if it didn't stand for long, it probably stood for and was modified over maybe like 5 years and probably used for several productions. But I don't know. I didn't look that up.
I don't know. I'm just wondering because it's a pretty cool. I mean, I've built something similar with my Lincoln Logs as a child.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a small. It's definitely not a small set, especially for what is it, 1939. That is a significant undertaking to build that if it was just for this film.
Yeah.
Right. I think maybe the masonry was there and they just kind of elaborated, cleaned it up a little bit. I mean, that's a lot of masonry. I suppose it could be fake, but it doesn't look fake to me. Well, in my brain, it's not fake.
Jay, that's an actual fort. I mean, it's built reasonably accurately to how it might have been done. There's a few atemporal things I could nitpick here and there. But that's an actual like it's not just some dude's farm with a wooden balustrade up. That's an actual fort that they're in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks very real. It looks very authentic to me. It wouldn't surprise me in any way to find out it was real. Seriously. Yeah.
Whatever one of these background characters is named Joe is John Ford's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, this was kind of cool. Like he knew everybody there already, and she's the outsider.
Yeah.
And everybody is learning who this woman is, and all the women are like, "Oh, she's so pretty," and all the guys are like, "Man, nice. I mean, good job, buddy."
Just look at the costuming. She very obviously stands out from everybody, including the women.
Right. Yeah. And so she's still got that rich girl mentality to her, but she's been out in the field for a while. So the women are starting to accept her, and she's becoming more into the community. It's great.
I don't remember the details, but she's wearing that hat versus what they have on, and that's a societal mark. Like you know what I mean? Like
yeah, they point it out. I forget exactly what one of the women says, but they point out her hat.
Yeah. Like it's like how like nowadays women might say, "Oh my God, she's got one of those like $8,000 purses." You know what I mean?
Right. That's it. That scene right there. Yeah. I noticed something about this movie that most modern movies don't do, and there's a whole bunch of different actors talking all at the same time.
Oh God!
And I had to rewatch the scene like 4 times to be able to catch what everybody was saying. So
I mean, it's not very often that you get even modern directors that will have like characters interrupt each other.
Right.
But there are a few. I forget exactly. It's all escaping my brain right now. But there are a few that we've watched in the past, either here or on another channel, maybe after the weekend, where it's pointed out where there's legitimate, natural conversation happening where people start talking over each other before one person ends a sentence.
Right. Yeah, and like the doctor would come in while they're talking and just interrupt them for no reason. And then just like snort a big fat chow and then leave, you know? What's up, Copa?
Yeah, Jay,
now this is for the
too. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
This scene here is for the female gaze here.
Yeah. And they like knocking on him. That's his physical.
I'm pretty sure the female gays are into women, but I don't know. Maybe. That type of gaze. Okay.
Yes.
See, I need to bring my set out to set it up and give you a rim shot.
But maybe this is just the gun-toting kind of constitutionalist in me. But this is what I think of when I think of a well-regulated militia, where they get together and they practice and they drill. But we don't need to get into that right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, in this
this guy is a real person.
The war has already started, so they're required to be in the militia right now.
Right.
Yeah. So just
But I mean, you definitely get a different feeling from these guys as opposed to later on when the proper Continental Army kind of comes marching in.
Yeah, and it's a big difference, and like everybody, it's a on-screen presence that everybody from our side, all the characters we know, just kind of backs up like, whoa, okay, yeah. I agree. These guys are kind of goofy and everyman,
Yeah.
lovable.
I mean, they're well-meaning. They're there to protect their families. Maybe they're not taking it too seriously because I get the feeling these guys are far enough inland that they don't think they're ever going to have to really deal with anything.
Right.
That's kind of what I got from the feeling from her house being, as you pointed out, right on the edge of the forest. Is like she was what used to be, quote unquote, the frontier. That house used to be the frontier.
Right.
But it's, now where civilization proper is. And she's gone even further out into that wilderness.
Right.
And that's where these guys are. So they think they're far enough removed. They don't have to take it seriously.
I'm kind of surprised that river didn't come into this more, to be honest with you. It's just right there.
Yeah.
Probably why that fort was built here. But yeah, this guy, he's funny. He's one of the comic reliefs that come in to bring everything down when things are getting too crazy, because this movie is really good at ramping up when it needs to.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I like his character. He's funny.
He's like calling out the names.
Yeah.
And then he calls his name out
like
several times.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's me.
Well, and then we see later on how much he hits the bottle. So he's probably a few sheets into the wind at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the characters thought it was funny too. I like those jokes that work in universe, in context like that. You can't just quit for the audience, So I like the writing in this scene too, because it goes from him being the drunk, the goof, to the general coming in and kind of starting to make everybody realize that this is for real.
Yeah.
So
howdy, Adam.
I got the impression from the background, the way of the novel, I don't know, but the way that a couple of these guys must have been in a previous military somewhere.
Right.
I mean, they've probably seen relatively organized combat against the natives in the area when they were moving into that space anyway, at the very least.
Right. And some of the guys are just hunters. A hunter's good with gun, good with a knife.
And you have this kid here. There's a kid there.
Well, when they march out, you've got like tiny little kids that look like they're probably 12 years old following after them.
Yeah.
And nothing else going on.
Hey, and in that time, if dad died or left or whatever, it would be up to the 12-year-old son to step up and learn how to use a rifle and fight for his family. So,
the older ones, I mean, the French and Indian War ended in like the 1760s, if I recall correctly. So the older guys would have been capable of having involved in that war. Probably like that guy, for example.
Right. Yeah, anybody who could hold a rifle at that point,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Independence Day, anybody that can fly.
In the frontier, you learned how, no matter what your sex was, you learned how to use a rifle from a young age.
Right. And we see that later on.
And it's just people you got to worry about. There's bears and wolves and mountain lions and, heck, moose. I mean, one of the dangerous things you're going to encounter are moose and elk,
Yeah, those are no joke.
Oh, yeah, seriously. And there's bears out there, too.
Yeah.
There goes freaking bears will rip you apart like right now. Back then, those muskets wouldn't do anything to a bear. Unless you get perfect, you happen to get it right in the eyeball or something.
Yeah.
Bounce right off his skull.
Well, bears are less stupid than moose. Like a bear is like, that guy's not worth eating. But a moose will be like, that guy looked at me funny. I'm going to kill his house.
Right.
And I kid you not, because like there's video of moose in Canada like charging cars. Like someone threw a rock at a moose, and the moose like destroyed the dude's car and fence and everything.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
man, they're insanely strong.
Yeah,
huge too.
Yes. So this general here, he's obviously, as you mentioned, Matt, he would have seen combat in like French and Indian War, and he's taking it very seriously.
Yep,
he knows that he's got the rabble. He knows that's what he's dealing with here, but he's still trying to get his best out of them.
Same area, and in the same area too.
Yeah,
because that's where it started in the French and Indian War too.
Yeah,
yeah.
Man, these guys, these are hard people. And not like people today, man. They had to forge the land to be what they wanted. It just drop you out in the woods.
The
with,
article.
100 people. Good luck.
This first battle they go off to, I was reading about it, and the Wikipedia said they were poorly trained.
Yeah.
These people could do a lot more than people can do now. I mean, they were tough people.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be, catch one of these guys in a dark alley with a freaking axe in their hand.
I mean, what it comes down to is fighting a tough life versus fighting another man trying to take you out. They're two very different things.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's a warrior in a garden thing.
Mm-hmm. No. I mean, and as tough as going out to the frontier and trying every day, literally having to fight to keep you and your family alive, there was, at least early on in a lot of those, I would assume in a lot of those guys' lives early on, there was a lot of kind of romanticization of it. That was the adventure. Yeah. That's always been part of our nature, is to seek the adventure of the wilderness. It's only once you get out there where you realize, oh, I could die tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, everything out here is trying to kill me. Awesome. Mm-hmm. And and it just never stops being that. You just have to carve out more and more protections.
Yep.
But everybody come from miles around to help you clear out your land. This is really cool.
I hate one that irks me a little bit, but there's a little bit of inaccuracy in the scenes here that just, maybe because I watch a lot of homesteading channels, but they would never have burnt up all the wood. The actors probably were like,
right.
I was just about to call that out. The most unbelievable thing in this film is they didn't chop that wood and save it and say, here, you have 12 months of firewood.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And splitting wood. They're all like chopping logs instead of like splitting the wood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that part of it, I think they're doing it to prep the logs to build this big house. You know what I mean? But I'm saying those big piles of like perfectly good wood, they're just burning for the hell of it.
Yeah, right.
Uh-oh.
Romans fighting in Amazon. I don't know. That sounds like a good time depending on what you're into.
You should stream that live, Roman. You'll get credit.
That's right.
Yes. Put it on your OnlyFans.
The Amazon felt the Henry Ford slap. She went after Roman.
Yeah, those are some giant logs. There's no way they would have burnt those.
Yeah. That is the most unbelievable thing. Out of all the things, it's very easy to find things in like a film from like this area in 1939 that's unbelievable. But this is the thing that stands out the most.
Yeah.
What? The wood?
Just burning it all instead of using it.
They're burning like all perfectly good wood. They're just burning it.
Yeah, those giant logs. Yeah, that would have been something. Unless it's rotten wood. Or like there was something wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's rotten, because either they save it for firewood or somebody else would use it for building material.
Right.
Even if it's rotten, there's outdoor fires that they do when they preserve stuff. You would still use it for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Or they did a lot of smelting.
Would they have
around
had
their home,
chain that big?
Their own ironworking?
Ooh.
I'm going to say just because.
I wouldn't say that they didn't have it back then, but just
it wouldn't have been as pretty.
I don't know.
See, this is again. I think they're planting his military background. Remember he's with the cannons and all later. You know what I mean? Like
okay.
I think this is a plant that he did. I'm tempted to click and get a copy of this book like right now. I'm trying to resist it, but because on eBay they're like I've seen some vintage copy of this book that I'm like stop.
If I have to say anything on the chain, I would say it would be not uncommon on a ship. Probably very uncommon this far from the coast. Not impossible, but uncommon.
Unless that's his trade, if he's some sort of like metalsmith.
I suppose.
Trade's a farmer, right?
If you have a blacksmith,
well, everyone's a farmer.
If they have a blacksmith in their I don't know where they would be, maybe at the fort or something.
It's possible. Even as Jay points out, it would be very expensive even then.
Right.
I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, it could be.
No.
Communities that far removed would probably have very heavy material like that they would share just to construct things or to pull down trees or uproot stumps and things like that.
I think that's Ward Bond.
It could have been a wedding gift too. Yeah, I think it is. It is.
He's another guy. I mean, there's so many legendary actors and actresses in this thing. It's like insane.
Right. Yeah, and they were actually out here cutting stuff. I don't know how much cutting they did, but you can see giant chunks of wood flying off when these guys are swinging their axes. It's not like they're just sitting back there playing. These guys were out there doing that.
Well, and later on, we'll see this is the era where when you did stunts where somebody ran into a house and set stuff on fire, they just set stuff on fire.
Right.
It's just what happened.
Yeah. Like that tree fell on set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agreed, man. This is really cool the way they did. They don't do stuff like this anymore. This
Ford
would have all been
like,
a green screen,
John Ford's like, did anyone get hurt? And they go, just an extra. Okay, throw him off. We'll get another guy.
It's fine. Rub some dirt on it. Right? 1939,
Yeah.
Did anybody get hurt? What was
Use
it
all
in
that
camera?
fire to cauterize it.
Yeah.
Did we get it on film? We could turn it into a scene.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Quick, put a revolutionary outfit on the doctor so when he treats him, he looks real.
Man, bringing stumps.
Okay, that's fake. I can tell you right now. There's no way what they're doing would work.
Yeah, not with the freshly cut down tree.
They are not strong enough to do that, and that tree would break before that amount of roots would break.
Yeah, even with the cows pulling on it, if you want to get rid of that, you burn it down. Like you hollow it out, you build a fire in it, and you just slowly burn
it down.
That's
Plus,
what
they would hack more of that stump off to use for wood.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do something to get them out. They wouldn't have just left them down in there. You'd think if they had a big ass chain like that and those cattle, they would just do that.
You'd need like 40 cattle to do that. It's like,
you
need an elephant basically to pull that out.
I mean, it looked like they chopped the roots.
I mean, if they did, then maybe. But even then, with a big healthy taproot in there, you'd have to let that stump sit there for probably like 6 or 7 years before you had a chance of doing this.
Yeah, right.
And that is a chance.
Yeah.
That's why I like the modern stump diggers. It's compared to that crap. Yeah. Screw that.
I have been in JT's backyard.
I was on site when my uncles was using explosives to deal with stumps. It was cool.
Nice.
You drill down about 3 feet, you pack it, and you run away. It's like
nice. That sounds fun. I would like to do that sometime.
I don't remember which
I've
one
never
you
actually used a high explosive in my life. So.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one you called it out, but this is what you were saying about the fine china in the corner being kind of out of place.
Right. But it looks like they have nice
I've shot the tannerite before.
There.
Ooh, tannerite is. I haven't shot it. Yeah. It's fun, but still risky.
Well, that would be our dowry.
Especially if you put it inside something.
Yes, shout out to that video where somebody shot a dishwasher full of tannerite and it took off the leg of his camera guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explosives are dangerous, man. It's like you got. I'm not an expert. I mean, I've done a few things with experts who've let me safely do stuff. You know what I mean? But like, you shouldn't mess with that unless you're either with an expert or are an expert.
Dude, you see these women in here doing this. I love how they set this up beautifully in the background. They're talking about it, and there's always that one person, right? Well, this doesn't look as good as what I had back at my house, right?
All these like wealthy city women had to go to the countryside, they were like the third daughters, exile. It's like,
yeah, because one of the ladies that was there before her said, when they're talking about the pheasant feathers, said, "Oh yeah, we used to have a whole bunch of those, but we got rid of them." So she's already moved on to the valuing what's practical. She's not holding on to that anymore.
Right. All that good wood.
Yeah, he just fires a bunch of it on there too.
I know.
Yeah.
I got to write down the timestamp to get Matt saying, "Look at all that good wood."
But yeah, this is like the height of their
Like if you were gonna make a fire that big, you already roasted more of those whole cows over it. It's like
right.
At least put half a deer over it.
Right. Yeah, this is literally the height of their innocence in this movie. Yeah. From this point forward, they're jaded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody gathering to watch their winter wood burn away.
Right. In multiple areas, right?
What in tarnations are those crazy city folk doing now?
Right. Well, Smokey the Bear is not happy with these people right now.
Yeah.
So nature shows up and takes its revenge.
And then the sole possibly Mohawk Indian shows up.
Right.
You would think being on the Mohawk River and called Drunk Mohawk, there would have been like someone was, let's put the Mohawk Indian in here somehow. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, he says there's like four white guys and like 100 Indians or whatever coming.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a young dude, so to outrun them to get there in time, you know, good on him.
Yeah. Tough old Indian.
Yeah, he saved all those people's lives.
Indigenous.
Like
tough
I had to
indigenous
look this up, right?
person.
So the Indians who are attacking are the Seneca, right? Who are another type of Iroquois. Well, so are the Mohawk. Why don't you call them the Mohawk? Because it drums along the Mohawk. I mean, my brain's locking on this thing. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they were in these battles too, so they were there.
Yeah.
It's not like they.
Even among these allied groups, I mean, if you kind of look at it like the United States, you could say that, you know, Texas and Nevada get along, okay, mostly, but there are going to be groups in there that don't. So if they have to go to war to either fight for or against each other, there's going to be groups that go against the flow of what everybody else is doing. So just because you have the Iroquois nation doesn't mean that these individual tribes aren't going to split up and fight against each other.
Oh yeah, they did fight against each other. I'm not saying that. It just irks me that, like, you know, like if you're gonna put an Iroquois in there, like have the Mohawk there. I mean, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
The villainous
we can't
John
say
Carradine.
that, Jay. Mm-mm.
I am 0.4% American Indian. I can say it.
Look, all I know is you have to differentiate between dot or feather.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that part right there where he turns around and blows the whistle and all the dudes are like right next to him. He could have just been like, "Hey guys, it's time." You know, they were all right there. Only like 20 of them, dude. But they do a good job of making it look
in the
like
woods.
Yeah,
true. I mean, that would also carry in the woods.
Your enemy, right?
Yeah,
right. Just like you can't say Indian, you have to say indigenous, and you can't say men because that would be
presumptuous.
You have to say indigenous persons.
I subscribe to the method of a local radio guy in my area. That's when he says Indian, he'll either say feather not dot or dot not feather.
Right.
But that'll probably get you canceled, so I won't say that again.
I still don't see how that's offensive.
Probably.
It's just referring to him. It's not like you're calling him that in a mean way. Unless you mean it in a mean way. Do you mean it in a mean way? It didn't sound like it to me.
Well, that specific guy is married to a dot, so.
Right. I have feather blood, just a little bit, a little itty bit, but I do have some from Wyandotte Indian blood. No, I get it, dude. So I just think people are overly sensitive today.
Everybody is,
as compared to what's going on here, where these people are fleeing for their lives. You know, this is crazy.
I mean, you've got kids there. People have brought their babies because you don't leave them at home. You've got nobody to care for them. You have to take them with you to work.
Yeah.
Well, they probably would have wanted to be there.
Indians,
everybody's coming from miles around to be here.
Everybody.
Yeah, this is a social event, you know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a town event. It's like when everybody gets together to help out. So it's the much harder working equivalent of like bringing a casserole to your new neighbor.
Right.
It's actually getting there and helping them build their land out. But then they're having to abandon this. And she even asked at one point, what about the cow? And it's not cows that they're like rich and have a bunch. They have a cow, probably for milk in that alone, and to plow the land. And he just says, it'll only slow us down. And they have to leave that behind. So their house, her dowry, like as you pointed out, Matt, all the china and the fancy things, everything that they've worked hard for, at the very least, I would assume like 2 to 3 months getting set up. Is just they have to leave behind.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to leave Lollapalooza to go somewhere else. Hey, go to the fort and be safe, right? It goes through, burns all their crops and everything, like straight for it. This was meant to hurt them over time. This was meant to push them back, take their land back. But you go for the food when you know you're going to siege, right?
Well, plus their excess food will be going towards the war effort.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
And, since they're right there on the river, they're probably using their excess food for trade purposes as well. So it'll cripple the local economy and the war effort.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, sir. Completely
That's a good point, Jay.
Mm-hmm. And they do, man, this is kind of sad. He built that by hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so even before he married her and brought her out there, he spent at the very least months, maybe a year building that house.
Right.
Well, that's what fascinating. The backstory I'm going to assume in the novel there's a backstory that maybe that's his family's home or something like that. You know how, like in The Quiet Man, he went back to where his family was.
He said he built it.
He did
he
say
said he built it. Yeah. When they first got there, she was freaking out, like she hadn't quite started crying, and their Indian feather friend hadn't showed up yet. Yeah, he was talking about how he had built it himself. Yeah.
This is a nice little glimpse to her actually having agency and taking charge and not being just a complete damsel in distress, because she's driving the cart while he's firing the gun. So she still has traits of this kind of innocence and kind of being spoiled big city, not having to deal with all these dangers. And she'll eventually kind of move completely past that. That's kind of character development that you don't really get these days. It's just they start already being past all that. And so you don't get to see this wonderful change in the character. They don't grow. They don't get stronger. They just,
Right. I do like the backgrounds here, the way they have these shots set up in the clearing this way. It's hard to tell sometimes the difference between what's real background and what's a painted background.
Mm-hmm.
That's really well done. I think this is one of the painted ones, if I had to guess. But
well, I kind of don't think so, because when they're riding in the cart, that is one of the few like rear projection shots. You can tell that they're not actually moving.
Right.
And then there's a shot later on when they revisit their burned down house that is very obviously on set.
Right.
But I think that's because it was set in winter and it wasn't winter out here. Most of these exterior shots, I think, are legit. I think they were built and shows a nice sense of scale.
But it also seems like it would be a lot cheaper just to film it like on site, like a lot of shots like that, than go have the painting up and do the film work to put them in. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, the only reason
if they build the fort,
they don't go straight out. They always go diagonally across the screen when they're in that one shot right there, because they show that angle multiple times over this space here.
They do a lot of clever things with this because they obviously built the fort. That's definitely a physical location. They at the very least built one cabin that they abandoned. But you can tell by the trees and the location, the nature around them, that they're obviously shooting in basically the same kind of square of natural reality, but they just film it from different locations to make you not really see that while they're filming them running through the forest this direction, the fort's 20 feet back that way behind the camera.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's cool. I love the way that the camera tricks people into seeing only what the director wants you to get.
It's really smart filmmaking.
Agreed. And like the lighting in this scene.
So she passes out, I guess, because of the stress of everything.
Oh, and we forgot to mention earlier when she was all decked out, all fancy, somebody tricked her into revealing that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh,
we forgot to mention that part.
Were we going to say, Dempsey, about the lighting in here?
Just the way that they do the lighting in these shots. A lot of times they have the lighting coming in through whatever windows or portals, and then they have the backing lighting. I just love the way that the shadows play across here in the back, and they're not. They didn't blot them out with a bunch of extra light.
Right. And I think that's actually
really
a side effect of this originally being shot in black and white, because that's what you had to do.
It's and I think that it works really well,
lady,
especially in the interior shots.
Yes.
Yeah. And this lady here's the same lady that was boasting about being practical and everything,
Right.
and she's just like,
yeah,
out
she's
of it.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care who you are, man, woman, what you've been through in life, until you meet a like serious situation, kind of like what they went through, you have no idea how you're gonna react to it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and
right.
full disclosure, not law enforcement, haven't served in the military, but I've talked to several, and even going through the training that you have to go through in your head over and over and over again, the things people put you through physically, you never really know how you're going to react when like bullets start flying your direction, when somebody starts coming after you and you realize that you are at risk of death. So nobody, how tough they are, they could be the toughest, and forgive me, Jacob, you can call me out if you want, toughest son of a bitch that you've ever met. When something serious like this happens, toughest dude could break down just like that woman was in that shot.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep.
Well, and back then, women just weren't expected to hold it together, where men were expected to hold it together.
I don't necessarily.
It's like one of the masculine traits of the time, back in the 1700s.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Because I mean, you'll see like when in a later scene with the battle, which that's more typical, where the women were actually loading guns and things like that, and
right,
you know, it's
which doesn't happen right now.
Now, frontier women, legit frontier women, you know, they would be just as used to it as their husbands were. You know what I mean? The city women will be the ones who had no clue.
Yeah,
you know,
I think maybe that
women and children
weren't
kind of
expected
to fight back. Men were. That's what I'm saying. So the women that help in this movie are examples of exemplary women, strong women. Like
you lived on the frontier. You learned to fight like from as a kid, because anything could kill you. Anything.
Well, right.
Yeah. Man, woman, or child. Like you. There was no like, you know,
even
exemplary.
Right? Even the women would know how to load a gun and use a gun.
Certainly,
you may have, your husband might be gone, and you might need to shoot a bear. Or
I mean, we see what's her face in a little while, just on the front lines, just right up there with the dude shooting.
True.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why when they lined up all the conscripts, they were all men.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that was typical there, but I mean, at the same time, and I get what you're saying, but I also get what Matt's saying. When the men went off to war, it was up to the women to do the men's job at home.
Right.
If you did, especially if you didn't have a son that was old enough to kind of take up that job, so they would have to stand up and do all that stuff and be trained to do it and be willing to do it.
Okay.
So I get what you're saying.
I'm not saying they couldn't do it. I'm saying they weren't expected to. It was women and children were saved, and the men stay and fight. So the women in this movie who do stay and fight are exemplary. They're like badasses. These are what real strong women are.
I get
like.
what you're saying.
Right.
What I'm saying is that was how women and children have to be on the frontier. Like the thing you're talking about is like the city women, how they would react, because they weren't trained from as a kid to deal with, you know, people attacking them just out of the hell of it on their land, you know?
I mean, yeah, if your house is surrounded, everybody grabs a gun, but there's a reason why all the dudes lined up and the women didn't.
They were going out.
I'm not trying to be a misogynist. I'm saying that's how it was back then.
Well, no, women and children would be protected. Yeah. That's not the point I'm making.
Right.
The point is, on the frontier, the women and children are protected, as in they're the next, but they're still trained to defend. It's not. Whereas in the city,
they're trained to hunt. And like we were saying earlier, hunting's not the same thing. They know how to fire a gun. They know how to skin stuff. You know. Yeah, certainly. They're probably harder than the boys of now. Just saying, back then the guys were the ones who were expected to fight. The guys go out front, and the women were helping.
Yeah, to go
and
out.
That's the only reason why that they were able to win is because they had the women's help. And that's one of the things is like they show it later in the movie where he wouldn't have been able to do what he needed to do without her strength.
I get what y'all both say. I think it's a little column A, a little bit of column B, because yeah, frontier women definitely tougher than the city women at the time.
Yeah, certainly.
But yeah, also they weren't the ones that typically went to the front lines. Right. And if you ever go to the front lines, then you don't have that experience later on. But you know, anyway. Right. I just got to point out the tiny little line that's easy to miss as he's walking in when he's just told, "Don't worry, you can have another baby."
Right.
Just like it's a throwaway line to that character.
Right.
And it's just like, oh.
Yeah, and it changed everything.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. Devastating, man. He does a really good job of playing it off too. At that old school, like, gotta be strong because she's devastated and she's trying to act like she's not devastated, but she can't, but she is, and you can tell. And he's trying to be there for her. But yeah, what a great scene.
Although there's a truth, like, and I know this from my career, like in the modern era, like let's say post 1910 or so, 1920, the amount of pregnancies that succeed is significantly greater than those that didn't. And like, there was a big change when the sort of the modern healthcare system came into being in like the 1910s,
Right.
And like if women would have like maybe 10 pregnancies and like 5 kids would survive to adulthood or something,
Right.
Even my grandparents, my grandmother was the baby of her family. My 2 oldest aunts died when they were babies in Italy,
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons they came. The 3 sisters left. It's like the death of children. I mean, it's a tragedy. I'm not saying you get used to it back then, but it was a part of life, It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's why people had so many kids. Because even if they came out, odds are they weren't going to make it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that obviously odds improved over time, and medicine improved over time, and hygiene improved over time, and things like that.
Well, then they grow up and they get killed by an animal or by some dude raiding their camp, raiding their farmhouse while the husband's at the mine, or it is,
or smoke inhalation from people coming on your land and burning all your wood.
Yeah.
I want to point out this is a nice subtle
the same
time
property.
skip.
Yeah. Subtle time.
No, I was just gonna say it's a nice subtle time skip because obviously snow is on the ground.
Winter has come. It's like
Go ahead, Jacob. Sorry about that.
The property I live on has a old graveyard, and it's like from the 1800s. Yeah. And there's like several children from 8 and under. So the death rate of children back then was high.
Oh yeah.
Dang, Jacob, I want to come visit your place and do some ghost hunting.
Right. Freaking back then, before antibiotics and stuff, you catch the wrong thing, that's it. Consumption or something, you're done. Yeah.
Well, that actually comes up in this movie.
I mean, what people die from cuts back then, like Khal Drogo or something. Yeah. Nastiness, man.
Yeah, this is like the moment, like she finally moves on beyond all, like the last little bit of her city girl kind of sheltered life.
Right. Yeah, and they show it really well.
That broken piece of her dowry that she just kind of dismissed because everybody else was like, "Oh, this is such fine teapot. What is it?" She goes, "Oh, I just think it's some china." Like, she's dismissive of it. She didn't really think much of it when they were talking about it, but now she realizes, like, "Oh, this is done."
Right. And they show it here very well visually. Like, she picks up the broken piece. See you, Roman.
Later, Roman.
And it's got soot on it, and she rubs her white dress onto the soot to try to clean it, and then kind of stops and looks at it and realizes it's pointless. Like, it's a really cool, like, representation of her rich self, her past being broken, and
her old self, and
her innocence and all that stuff is gone now.
Yep.
She can never go back to the old life anymore, and they have to just trudge ahead like nothing's wrong. And they don't know what they're going to do. How are we going to eat, dude? It's cold. We don't have a place to live.
It's something that so many people go through in their life, especially when you're kind of a young adult, is you think you've got everything set up. You think you got your money. Something happens, whether it's your fault or not. Often it is our fault. Let's admit it. We're dumb. And then you realize, oh, I have to like humble myself and take a lower job and rent a tiny little ratty place, or I'm not going to eat.
Right. Been there. Yep.
Yeah.
And this lady's cool.
This lady,
I like her.
Is a hoot.
She's cool.
I love her.
Yeah.
Edna May Oliver. This is kind of the end of her career. She's a pre-movie legendary actress.
Okay, so stage
stage
Yeah.
actress.
Nice.
Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah, I love her. She's my favorite character in this film.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey, I like that. That was very articulate, sir.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jay. Reality has a habit of disabusing you of your conceits.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah, I part of the thing I like about her is not that she's just like no nonsense. She's got this attitude. She's been on the frontier longer than anybody. She doesn't care. She just does what needs to be done. She's not there to appease anybody, but also she's got this backstory that she only ever hints at. And they don't, I mean, other movies would sit you down, they'd have this melodramatic thing where she's like, she had too much to drink.
A flashback.
She's talking about how her husband left and all this other stuff that she went through and she had to pull herself up by her boots. No, she just mentions it and moves on because that's not her life. That's not the life on the frontier. You don't focus on what's behind. You focus on what you have right in front of you.
That's right. And she's hard. She's been hardened over the years. Old widow, and she's not messing around. This is what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. She looks at her hand. Because all she's asking, I think she said, "Do you want to sew for me?" And you know what? At first, I'm thinking like actually sewing clothes, but I think she probably means like sewing grain and planting stuff, like the actual hard labor. So she wants to see her hands and make sure she's not soft.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
And she had been working this out already. Lucky for her, she had a good trainer. You know?
Yeah, because you can see that smile on her face. She looks at her hand. She's like, "Oh yeah, you'll do." She's not bringing people in to baby them. She's bringing people in to work. She's got land. She's got basically 2 houses. She got her big house she lives in. She got the spare house that's been just drying food in. So when she and her husband moved in here and built this, they were obviously very well off.
Well, our kids are gone, so these people to maintain the house just can live there.
Yeah, I think the original house is her and her husband's original house before they built the bigger one. So that's
okay.
It's not a cabin.
I'll pay you. What is it? $45 a year?
I think it's like $25.
It's a crazy amount of money. It sounded really low, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this was back when our money was still back
a year now." You know,
that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
So this is kind of nice because she comes in and you can she's like playing off this disdain ever since her husband left her, and it's never made clear, at least that I can recall, if he left her because he left her. But I think he went off to fight and died, and she's bitter about it.
Yeah,
right.
Later on, when she's talking about people going off and fighting.
Yeah.
But early on, right here, it sounds like he just left her, and she's angry about it. Which I think is a brilliant little bit of character development.
Agreed. Yeah, they handle her very well. And it's a nice contrast between those 2 female characters, too. They couldn't be much more different from each other.
Right.
And I think that's the reason why she's able to muster the strength later in the movie is because of this character's influence on her.
Good point.
Well, they had a lot of kids.
He asked her, what is your political party?
Oh, and she's like full libertarian. She's like, American Tory, Indian. I don't care as long as they don't mess with me and mine.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I knew I liked you.
Right? Yeah, she's not messing around. But when push comes to shove, she's on the American side.
Well, I mean, they're coming after her property. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And it's the Americans that come to save her. So she goes off with them. It helps them load her.
I don't think it's necessarily she chose the American side, as she picked the people who were willing to protect her.
Well, that's true. They did kind of have to carry her there, didn't they?
They
basically
really
kidnapped her. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, this organ is cool too. It's like you have to pump it to make it work.
Jay's got it right. She's on the opposite side of whomever is messing with her. That is well put.
Yeah.
Oh, and they yank his hat off.
Takes his hat off. Puts it back on.
I've been that kid. I've been that kid in church.
Yep. They used to kick us out of church for that, dude. They kicked me out of church one time for wearing shorts.
That's terrible. Back in back in the day when I was little, I'd look at you if like we were in like praying and had your hat on and be like, he doesn't care. And I'm just like, that is a meaningless little symbol thing. I don't really care.
Agreed. Well, and back then they would have been speaking Latin.
Yeah.
So the Reverend,
maybe
he would have been turned around.
No, they're Protestants. They wouldn't be
Protestant. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, this isn't. I don't think this is a Catholic. I think this is a.
The Protestants.
They're
whatever.
I think they're German. This is a German area.
He's based. This dude's super based.
Well, historically, it would be Dutch and German settlers. That much I remember. Okay. But they're Protestants, and the Protestants preach in their local language.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This guy is Arthur Shields. He's the longtime John Ford guy. He played the Anglican priest in or reverend in The Quiet Man.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how he's just like in the middle.
Even though that's 30 years later, he looks the same age.
Right. This guy. And then at the very end, it's like, by the way, if you don't show up, we're gonna hang you. So good luck. Thank you, Lord. Yes. Super based. See you guys at the gun range, right? Hallelujah.
And like he says, may our enemies be consumed, like in the time of Elijah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, some of this does seem really out of place now, especially when you kind of separate, like city announcements from church. But this was the gathering point. If you weren't at the fort because you were under attack, church is where these people went for their announcements and what's being planned for the city and any threats around there. This is where they gathered for information and news.
Yep. Yeah, because everybody went to church. Man.
The church is in the fort, by the way. But
okay. Oh, that's right.
And the rhetoric for he's doing, many of the early religious groups that came to America were, I don't want to say extremists, but were Christian groups who were considered like hardcore, and they were like the Pilgrims and the Puritans, all that.
Yeah, the Puritans were nastiness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it relative to the other Christians in Europe, so they were like like way Christian, you know what I mean? Like more so than they were in Europe. So the rhetoric makes sense historically, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, they were violently Christian.
Yeah.
What's up,
AJT?
Oh Lord, that's this guy. He was awesome, and he hammed it up, and I completely believe that character completely.
He might be my second favorite character, but only because he goes through towards the end what he goes through.
Yeah.
Had he not, he just would have been an overly dogmatic, annoying character. True. But because that last little bit of his story arc kind of humanizes him a lot more, and that's what makes me like him.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, plus, it's always nice when people go through some kind of character change after something traumatic like that, and and a lot of movies after the fact wouldn't let you see any of that. They would just kind of move on or just end the movie. And this one, they do a close up on that guy and what actually, wow. I won't say anything till we get there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, this is him going off to war, and they had an interesting interaction with the old lady, right?
And they do a nice job with the time skipping, that he has to go, when the crop season's over, they have to go away to the war and then come back, and
Yeah. But yeah, that lady right here. This interaction was, I wasn't expecting that. I suppose I should have seen it coming, but she is, I think, reliving her past right now. That theory you were talking about earlier. She's seen this before. She knows what this means.
Yeah, I can't tell if that's a canteen or a powder pouch. I think it's powder. And she said something like, "It was my husband's. He's not going to need it anymore."
Right.
Yeah.
And it's at the moment, like that look on her face, and she kisses him. Right. It's like that's when you realize, like, oh, he's already gone off to fight. So maybe it was French Indian War. Maybe it was pre-revolutionary, because it's still early days, at least from what I get.
Right.
Maybe a couple of years into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been gone for a while, and she obviously hates war.
Right. Yeah. She says something along the lines of, "I'm going to kiss you now so you don't go off to war with the taste of a widow in your mouth." because he knew that he was she knew he was gonna stop by and kiss the wife on the way gone.
Mm-hmm.
So we want the last kiss on your lips to be your wife's, but I'm gonna kiss you now because I know that what this means. I'll probably never see you again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But real subtle, like, you know.
Yeah,
it was really
even just that last when she leans back in the rocking chair, that's like the sign of somebody that's like resignation. She like the weight on her shoulders is too much, and she finally just goes, I can't take this.
Like that.
Yeah. They're both kind of going through the same thing.
Yeah. She ran to the backyard to see him coming around and ran out there. But what a beautiful shot! This guy's hilarious. This total failure. This guy.
Yes, ma'am. Me and the old men older than 60 come around everybody up and take you to the fort.
Right.
All right, man. Just go ahead and do it. Just spit.
Go outside. Get out of here. Don't spit in my house. Close the door on him. That's awesome. She's based. I like her. And then they just stay. They're like, no, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing too.
I mean, because you've got I need to look her name up or the character's name up because she deserves it. Mrs. McClenner. She's there because it's her home and she's not leaving.
Right.
And Lana is there because that's where her husband is going to return when he comes back. So she can't bear to be anywhere else.
Right.
Even if it's not kind of registering in her head if there's any kind of danger, she just won't abandon their home because she can't stand to not be there when he returns.
Yep. Oh man, look at that. Look at they're just kind of scanning the house and showing everything that's at stake, you know. And because that's not just a clock. There's memories behind it that, you know, they didn't just order it off a wish or something.
Well, you know? Even the plate that's up there beside that clock, that's a little bit of finery that's kind of left over from Mrs. McClenner's maybe dowry that Lana has lost.
The sign that they've built back up again.
Mm-hmm.
Here come the men. And this, in the rain and everything, like, man, this scene is just like a nightmare.
And if I remember right, like the clock strikes like 4 or 5 in the morning when they come in. So they've been up all night waiting. And it's just not an overnight battle. They've been up for probably days, just only sleeping hours a day.
They were going to reinforce a fort that was like 3 or 4 miles away. So that, I mean, think about that. 3 or 4 miles. 3 or 4 day march from where they were. So that's they've been gone for like 8 days.
That's the place he goes back to, right? Later.
Yeah.
It's the same place, right? Yeah. Like they set it up like he would know the way. He's been there before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because if like you think 3 to 4 miles, like, if you're in good shape, you can run like an 8-minute mile or whatever. It's like, but you're moving a group of troops, all the supplies, their weaponry, and all this other stuff going along, and that takes a while. I mean, a 10-mile trip with a horse and a wagon there and back, you might be gone a day.
Right.
Well, you also have to advance at a rate where your scouts can make sure there's no enemies about to ambush you, and
you don't want your troops arriving tired.
No,
agreed. Yeah,
on your way back, you've got,
and that's not even sprinting or running, you know.
Mm-hmm.
On your way back, you have wounded men to carry.
Right.
Also.
And to put this in a military perspective, what's happening is they're going up the valley to stop the advances down valley from the British-controlled Canada and Indians. So if you remember, like, the picture, you know.
And this is kind of starting to hit home a little bit, too, because if I think Jay said that was a canteen she gave him earlier. The way she kind of reacts when these troops automatically come to her place and they bring the general in, it's a different kind of situation. But I kind of suspect if her husband didn't come back from battle and die in their home, because otherwise, why would she have his like military traveling stuff to give away? So she's kind of reliving this in my mind.
Yeah, and she's very hospitable. But, you know, back then it was like those were all her buddies. She grew up with these people. or not grew up with, but has at least existed in the area longer than any of them, probably remembers when the general showed up to begin with.
Yeah.
May have had a thing off on the side with
them. So this battle they came back from was a real battle. It was the Battle of Orska. It's an Indian word, but they were ambushed by loyalist and Indian soldiers, and there were about 800 of them, of these guys, and about half of them came back. So over half of them were injured or killed, and it was the most bloody battle of the war.
This is who you mentioned earlier. Was his leg has basically been gone foul because of the shot.
Yeah,
and I think he died, obviously, but antibiotics or any heck, even the surgical techniques from 50 years later would have saved him by cutting the leg off. Because doctors. Okay, so doctors began getting, if I remember the timeline right, doctors were basically like trained by other doctors, like blacksmiths trained blacksmiths throughout like the 1700s for the most part, though there were some medical schools popping up. In the 1800s is when doctors started formalizing into like guilds of doctors and all that to make and get more medical schools. And then groups of surgeons formed up, and surgeons were actually the ones in the early 1900s who actually started hospitals.
Right.
That was the Blue Shield, right? So Blue Cross Blue Shield comes from the concept of it. Yeah. So just 50 years later, the doctor might have had enough skill to save his life by cutting the leg off, which he doesn't know how to do, obviously, here, you know?
Well, the guy here is going to take his leg off, but he asked him, have you ever done this before? And he said, no. So he might not have even been a doctor. He might have just been somebody that knows this is the only chance that we have to save you. And it probably, at least in my mind, was complications from that actually led him to die. Not necessarily.
Well, he said he was a surgeon, right?
Did he?
I think he does. I think he identifies himself as a surgeon.
Yeah, he's a surgeon. Yeah.
But he does say this is his first time trying to do this, right?
Right. Yeah. Just because you're a surgeon doesn't mean you know how to cut a leg off.
Well, no,
I got a pretty big light show going on right now.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was looking at weather earlier.
So if I disappear, that's why.
The super raccoons.
Yes.
Those electrified raccoons.
Right.
I kind of like that they get him the kind of the trope, something to bite down on while they take his leg off. But from what it looks like to me, it's a pipe.
Well, it's not a trope. It's so you don't bite your own tongue off or shatter.
Well, yeah.
Teeth.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just like the fact that, instead of going and getting just a stick for him to bite on, it's like, here's a pipe.
Strap of leather or something.
Yeah.
Right. Man, you're like, give me that whiskey.
This guy he was on horseback when he got hit, and it shattered his knee, killed the horse. So pretty nasty.
I used to be a general like you and until I took a musket ball to the knee.
Yeah, right. I think they said something about it's rigored already. Like his leg was already starting to go stiff, so it wasn't even at the it's infected. Like that whole thing is dead.
It's mortifying.
Gangrene.
It's mortifying, meaning the blood flow.
Right.
Yeah. Blood flow, with no blood flow, so it's starting to rot on his body.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because a wound like that, you're either going to bleed out or you're going to put a tourniquet on it, and everything below is going to die.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's toast. They put his
and
pipe
this
in
poor
his
guy
mouth.
survives the French and Indian War and whatever else, retires and gets killed in this other war.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, he was on horseback, which, I mean, that alone just kind of lends itself to kind of this valorous old kind of style of charging forward in front of your troops instead of sitting back and just ordering them. So that kind of that's still.
This scene, this was amazing. As she's out there wandering around through the dark rain on a long path on her land, just looking around, she could tell she was looking for something. And there was no reason for her to think that he was there.
In fact, at least a couple of people had told her that nobody else made it out behind us.
Yeah, the last dude in line was nobody else. Yeah. But there he was. The hope against hope. That's all they had. And that scene really hones down that whole, this is all they have. is each other
that is
to make
also,
it through this.
Sorry, that's also a plan for what he does later. No, he survived all that, got back on his own, establishing his wilderness toughness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Oh, and he does really good here with the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, and the monologue that 8 different people come in and out of, and he just keeps going. Yeah, dude, this performance right here in this scene,
definitely.
Yeah,
even
the battle was
and
hand-to-hand combat. So with Indians with spears and tomahawks.
Yeah, bayonets and
you're not even looking at, not to get too gruesome here, you're not even looking at like modern gunshots versus musket gunshots. You're looking at slices, gouges, stabs, and amputations, and just the burst that you can see like feet from your face.
Right.
And this is the era of military training when they stopped training soldiers to fight hand to hand very much. And there was a period about 150 years, other than fighting with your musket and your spear, so to speak, your bayonet, up until almost World War II, where soldiers started getting actual hand-to-hand training again. You know,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I kind of have to wonder if some of the hand-to-hand combat back then was not that different from just like a alleyway brawl, but with much deadlier weapons.
Right.
Well,
it's just like struggle, and you just hope.
Right. It's not like
upon hope that you land the right hit.
Right.
Well, no, they had martial arts that soldiers were taught. I mean,
certainly
wrestling, the precursor to boxing. You learn that stuff you even the conscripts were taught the basics of that because, you know, but that all ended when guns became like, well, you give 100,000 guys guns. You know, it's like, you know, we'll have them learn to shoot those muskets accurately at 100 feet. You know, it's like, actually,
and
funny enough,
grenadiers and cannonmen and Right.
If you watch, like I'm reviewing Sharp, right, which takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, which is about 35 years after this, right, and you can see the difference between how the chosen men are, the ones in Sharp's riflemen who are trained in both rifle techniques and hand-to-hand combat, versus the regular redcoats who just can shoot and then swing their gun like a club. You know what I mean? They actually depict that in the you know.
And I just want to point out real quick, I know we've already kind of moved a little bit past it, but credit to Lana's character there. Again, part of her character arc, which is crazy to think that we have those in movies, is that she is just handling the situation.
Yeah.
He's got his 1,000-yard stare. Yeah. He's reliving the horrors of it, and she is just taking care of business. She's patching wounds. She's got everything. Up. Yeah, she's leveled up. She's level-headed. Mm-hmm. She's just taking the situation as it is. She's not freaking out.
Well, to be fair, that his wife passes out a lot, like a lot, dude. It's kind of funny at certain points. You're like, okay, so the action's happening. Where's she at? Well, she's not on screen. She's probably unconscious somewhere.
Well, is she still suffering the effects of the Fonda slap? You know,
right.
Like she just randomly walked down the street and her face ripples and she falls down.
Right. Like she's strong, but she's not like binary Ms. Marvel. You know.
Yeah. I mean, only so many people can take a sonic boom to the face and, you know, come out on top.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Look at that expression on his face, man. This guy nailed this, dude. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Henry Fonda in any other movies, Dempsey?
Nope.
Ah, okay. He is one of the all-time great actors.
Oh, I can see that. Yep. Like, seriously, I could tell by the way this happened. And not only that, but he's like that classically handsome dude too. So he had all that crap going for him. But I completely believe in this moment that this guy is going through that. And he's got like a bullet wound in his chest, and somehow it didn't hit his bones. It didn't hit his heart. It didn't hit his lungs. Like the luckiest man in the world. His beautiful wife, out of all these dogs, his beautiful wife found him out in the middle of the rain, in the middle of the night with a gunshot wound. Like, this guy is like the luckiest man ever, and he keeps his cool, but he's broken in this moment. It's just, wow, it's so good.
Well, see, and that's something. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. 2 Henry Fonda movies you should watch.
Okay.
12 Angry Men and The Grapes of Wrath.
You know what? I've seen both of those. I didn't know that was him.
I mean,
okay. This makes a lot of sense to me now.
In Harm's Way, The Longest Day. I mean, you could Henry Fonda. You can go down the list with Henry Fonda.
So
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Want to point out this whole dynamic that they have right there, where he's weak and she's strong, is something that would be forced upon us without any character arc, and that would be the entire film with a lot of what you get these days. And that's something that I think that is so often lost, is that you can be the strong, caretaker and defender and everything like that, but you're going to have a weak moment. We all have weak moments.
Right.
And you could be the character that's more caring and nurturing and things like that, but every now and then you got to stand up and do the job that is presented to you, and that is very well depicted in this.
Agreed. Yeah, this is the right kind of strong, the helping everyone around you in a way. She's becoming useful, where when she first got here, she was like this spoiled rotten little girl who couldn't really do anything at all. She couldn't even handle somebody walking in the house, and now she's like taking care of everybody. And I'd be willing to bet half these people wouldn't have lived if she hadn't done what she did.
Mm-hmm.
And the other half probably wouldn't have lived if the old lady didn't do what she did. So these women really just took control of this situation and stepped up in a big way.
I've got to look up her age, because you keep saying the old lady, but I'm betting she's younger than we think she is. I'm going to look that up. Y'all continue.
Edna died like 10 years after this movie.
Dude.
She was born in like the 1870s or something like that.
Dude.
I love when they bring the general in, it's like he's starting to order people around, and she's like, no, you're not going to order people around in my house.
Right.
Yeah, because her house is not American or Tory. It is her house.
Right. True.
And if I did my math right, Edna May Oliver, that plays Mrs. McClinner, was 56 when this filmed.
Wow. 56.
And this is one of her last 5 or 6 films, if I recall correctly.
Nice.
She died like 10 years after this.
She's amazing in this.
Yeah.
She's my favorite character in this.
So many like actors, actresses, directors who just careers are lost because either all those early silent movies are gone, or because they were actors on stage. And I know about her because I read about her for some other stuff she did back then. But
she did 2 films after this. Her last film was Lydia in 1941.
Yeah, and historically, like you only know about them because they were in these, like the end of their live career, they were in these couple of films or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a good shot here.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I like the way they have the lighting with the shadow that does come in is just through the window. It looks very natural. Yeah. The coloring. That's a good frame.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, and the old general died. Bled to death.
Yep. Kind of like Jay said a little while ago, taking a leg above the knee for an inexperienced surgeon is a great way to see a bleed out. Yep. So it was probably the right move, but probably, like they said, he had not taken a leg before. So
yeah.
Well, he was going to die anyway, though. So.
Agreed.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was the right move.
Yeah.
And they kind of carry him out.
Might have been smarter to go find a veterinarian. It's like
that's true.
And now the community has no veteran military leader.
Right.
But I think that captain guy died too.
Oh, look, they're burning more wood.
Yep. Time jump.
They're boiling water, and one of the guys says, "I don't know why we needed so much boiled water." Like, well, yeah, right. That was back then the closest and easiest way you could try to sterilize something.
Right.
Well, there are 2 reasons for that. Yeah. Okay, one is to get the menfolk out of their hair.
Right.
Okay.
It's something to think about. Distracting.
It's busy work, and if there is anything we like to do, it's build a fire.
Yeah, true.
Pregnancy. Yes. I don't want to talk on lecturing, but this is the education I got from been working with for 15 years. Pregnancy is a naturally occurring event. In other words, women can give birth without it being perfectly fine. The complications are you want to keep it clean. So easiest way is you keep taking all the bloody, gunky sheets back then we're talking, take them out and boil them in water so you sterilize them, let them dry out. Because if she's pregnant for 3 days, giving birth, you got to keep recycling those same couple of garments. You want to take them out, clean them, and sterilize them right away, have them dry so you can keep rotating them through. Because the best way to keep her from getting sick is to get that gunk away. You know?
Right.
They actually have on modern pregnancy beds like a little like a bucket that's built into the bed. So when that material, the meconium, it's called, it's coming out of her, and plus the plasma, it goes into the bucket right under her, and they keep dumping it basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this scene, it's great. What do you guys think about this scene with the dad that can't go upstairs? Been there.
I'm not a dad, so I can't say.
I've been there for the birth of my 3 sons, and I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing quite like that nervousness of just not knowing if your person's okay, if your baby's okay. Like, and he didn't even know the gender or whatever they call it.
I mean,
now.
the closest I can get was when I was a little kid and I was bored waiting for my sister to get born, and where we were just down the hall was the door behind which it was happening. And I would my grandparents were paying attention. I wandered down there and I just wanted it to be done. I stuck my ear against the door and I heard her cry. And I'm pretty sure it was her first cry. I immediately ran down. I was like, she's born. She's here.
Right.
That's the closest I've gotten.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this much, man. The joy that comes over you when you finally see it, they do a great job of that. That's not quite yet.
Yeah.
So I'll hold off on that.
My family.
And this Indian's like, when our women are pregnant, we make them go away and take care of it.
Right. Leave the husband alone. Right. Yeah. Based.
My family started calling me a baby sociopath because when I got my current job before I was stuck at home, my office was on the postpartum floor right next to one of the 2 giant nurseries. So I'd hear 20, 30 babies crying all day. Man. I just became like immune to it. So when I go home and my family has babies and the baby's screaming and crying, they're all trying to, I'm like, it's just crying. I mean, just crying.
You're just having a conversation like, they're still breathing. They're fine.
Right. If they're crying, the breath is working. That's
I would tell babies cry. You know, it wants its mom or it wants to eat or it wants its poop chain. That's all it means. It's like babies cry.
Right.
I like this. They basically just send them out to chop wood as busy work, like you were saying. Just get out of her hair. Which also makes sense. And I would expect this. Like I said, I'm not a dad. Just like as a dude, regardless, when I'm stressed, sometimes I just want to go do some busy work, something physically exerting. Literally, sometimes go chop wood or haul a tree out of the woods and put it on the burn pile or something like that. That's just satisfying. Yeah. But I also don't buy that he thinks that baby cry is a cow.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's trying to portray that he's just confused and kind of mentally out of it.
Right.
I don't know. I've
freaking out.
I've heard some cows make some funny noises that sound like something else.
Well, no, Jay, usually if the baby's crying, it's either hungry, scared, wants to be fed, or isn't. But in other words, so it's like a normal thing. They're constantly saying, protect me, protect me, protect me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just when there's like 7 nurses and the mothers and doctors and whatever, just kind of like want to ignore it.
This guy
seems awesome.
He's obviously drunk. I mean, I would especially think that he was extra drunk because the general that he served is dead. He's probably not handling it well and probably hasn't been handling it well for a long time. It's like, it's a boy. And he goes, oh boy, at my age.
Right, a son at my age. Oh no.
I don't know his name, but he's like the John Rhys Davies of his era. He was in like 150 movies as a supporting role, and now you look at his face, you'll watch these other old movies from like that 30-year time period and say, oh, that's that guy from Drums Along the Mohawk. Oh, the innkeeper. You'll keep saying in your head because I've seen him from so many things. I don't know his name though.
It's funny though. He looks like one of those people. I swear I've seen him in something else. I just can't remember what it is.
Oh, that's how it is with so many. This was a nice little touch to have her come out, and she's got the dirty bedding held like it's a kid.
Right. And then she changes it over. Right.
Yeah, because he's worried. And if she's coming out holding something, that would mean probably the baby wasn't doing well, which that is a totally, understandable reaction for him to be like focused in on that.
Right. Yeah. Cause she was keeping it away from him. Like if it had been all right, the baby would go up to the dad. If it's not okay, you don't let the dad see. Right.
So, and that doctor, he's just so numb. He's just like, Well, go on in. I don't care. I've got a pipe to smoke.
Right? Yeah, you could snorting that snuff the whole time, man.
Oh, that's right. He had snuff. That's right.
Yeah, hilarious, dude. This guy, and he's just so like eccentric that he doesn't barely speak. You know what I mean? But you can tell there's something like just a little off about the guy. Pretty cool. I like the way he portrayed it.
Oh, and Jay points out, of course, they did already have one failed pregnancy. So
right.
And like you said, Matt, earlier, that was kind of rare for pregnancy to succeed. So would be a concern.
Well, you know, once you have one miscarriage, the odds of miscarriage goes way up.
Right.
As well. And that's even in modern time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so wacky. This dude is like actually a little wild.
The doctor's like, tells the nurse lady, and bring some brandy back. He's like, what do you mean, for the little baby? He's like, no, for you.
For you.
No, you save the brandy for the baby until they start teething.
Right. Yeah. Right, on the gums. Yep. But yeah, doctor's orders, man.
I mean, interesting question here from him. Has he asked, how is she?
Right.
And he's already been told it's a boy, so he's not asking about his kid.
Right.
I don't know exactly what to take from that, but that is kind of an interesting thing that he's asking about his wife first.
Well, I know that when I got married, I had to take classes with my, I mean, it was a Catholic marriage and all this stuff, right? And one of the things that they taught us was that you're supposed to love each other more than your children, because your children, you can make more children. You know what I mean? There's only one marriage there. So it's supposed to be like you two are the same person. That's what the symbol of the ring is and all that. You guys become one person.
Just statistically, the man is first concerned about the mother before the baby. That's just the way
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah. I was too.
I mean, the general assumption is the baby is not going through the stress that the mother is going through.
Right. Not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know what? She looks great for just having gone through a, no medicated birth.
Right. That's like a dream. Like even the way they lit her and that's not how women look usually.
I have to say that is a little baby. I would say maybe a couple weeks old, maybe.
Yeah. That's probably one of their babies.
Before the time when they restricted the age of children on camera, I think the 30s.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that is a little tiny baby. That's a good point. Right.
We don't point that out to the ladies. That's how you get murdered.
Yep. No, yeah, this is great. I love the way that they played this up. This moment was what I was talking about earlier. The way that he goes and he's like scared and iffy and doesn't know. And he's like, no, I don't know anything about this. I don't know. And then he looks down and it's like everything changes about it.
Yeah,
because go to IMDb and see if they list who played the baby.
He's seen war. Yeah. He's seen the worst of war, and he immediately goes into more scared than he's ever been, which I would assume I would be, seeing my child for the first time.
Right.
But then when he picks his son up, immediately was like, oh, this is what the world means. Right.
I'll say this. The first time I held my son, I could barely move. I could barely speak. It was very strange. And then I went outside and lost the ability to walk for a couple minutes, fell down on my knees and just kind of stayed there and was like, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
I mean, I can only imagine when I held my nephew for the first time. He was only a couple, like 2 days old or whatever. I didn't even know what to do. And it was my nephew, not my own son.
Right.
And so I can't really imagine what would go through my head during that. But anytime anybody tells me that how overwhelming it is, I just have to believe that it's true.
Yeah. It's one thing to describe it with words. Words will never do it justice. There's just something, it's different. I've never been the same ever since that happened to me. It's that significant. Yeah. Yep. And he did a really good job. The actor did a tremendous job of portraying that on screen, just real subtly with the way his body language and his facial expressions, and the way the music changed. By the way, I wanted to point out one of the things about the music. This is a good part. At certain points, I thought this score was like really overdone, like overwhelming. There were certain points where it was perfect. And then there were certain points where it's just like a little too much for me.
Yeah, this is kind of a time period where I don't know exactly when the cutoff was, but you definitely have that type of like over the top orchestral thing
like
that
Looney
is
Tunes style.
like a holdover, I think, from probably the silent movie era.
Merry Melodies.
But I do like this guy that is just like full on hitting on the old widow.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Well,
and the main character delivering lines away from the camera. It's interesting to me. And
I didn't find who played the baby, but I found out this movie's in the public domain now.
Oh, really?
Oh, is it?
So if you want to watch it, it's on the Internet Archive, basically.
Okay.
I think that's where I found it, actually. Yeah. Well, there was two different spots, but this was the one I watched, was Archive.
Yeah.
I take back what I said earlier about the wood burning being the most unbelievable thing.
Mm-hmm.
The most unbelievable thing is the fact that they've got this party going on downstairs and there's a baby sleeping upstairs.
Right.
Even though it looks like there's been a little bit of a time skip, even though I don't think there was intentional, I think they just had to get an older child to play for this role than they had earlier. But there is no way in that house or any modern one where that many people could be dancing around playing music and a child would be sleeping.
Right. No, that's true.
Oh, I thought they were in the barn. They're not in the barn.
I don't know. You can still kind of hear music playing in the background. That's the same music that's playing.
Maybe.
I guess maybe it might be in the barn.
Oh, baby. They don't even know. Got a hard life ahead of that baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this too, where she sits down and the
free.
light from the windows just barely hitting her in the face and switches over to the darkness. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, she prays right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, and then after about 6 weeks, it stops doing that, and they're just so easy to freaking wake up. I remember the first couple weeks were actually kind of easy because the baby's almost always asleep. But, just saying.
So we got a little bit more of a time skip here. Not a ton.
Oh, it's a toddler now.
Yeah.
It's been at least a couple years, man. There's no way that's a...
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not like it's been like a month or two.
Right.
This part is just crazy. Two drunk Indians come in.
That wasn't like part of a band. They just kind of... And there was like no setup. Just all of a sudden, these dudes in the doorway with a torch.
The American Revolution went from like 1775 to 1783. It was a long war.
Yeah, it was nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny to me that like the way that the movie is moving along at this pace, and all of a sudden the little baby that just happened was, like a little bit older during the party scene, which was out of nowhere. And now this happened. Now it's a toddler, and this lady is, just minding her own business in her husband's bed, and these guys come in and just set the house on fire. Yeah. So was this just like a bunch of drunk Indians? Is that all it was?
I kind of got the feeling that it was.
I mean, they're carrying rifles.
Yes and no. Maybe not necessarily part of the war, but it was just kind of maybe. Early on, I got the feeling that like war encroached on their territory and it was drawn elsewhere, and now it's kind of bleeding over back into their area.
Right.
I mean, maybe this is just kind of something that naturally would have happened once the British left or the Loyalists left.
Right. But like, if they came here to do her harm, why did they carry her out?
I don't think they're there to do her harm. You know what I mean? I think they're there to drive the people out of the region.
Yeah. They're just they've been told to just burn houses and
refugees are something you want your enemy to have. It makes them harder to fight. Plus, the British want to actually have people paying taxes and whatever after the war is over. You know what I mean?
And just a small thing, when he looks over his shoulder, just a couple frames ago, look at the land that is attached to her house, as opposed to how much land was attached to his house that was burned down. That is a rich person. That is a lot of property.
Certainly.
Well, she lived there so long, she cleared so much. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that. Like I think it's your claim back then. Like there was no like
well, you basically claimed what you could defend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, until the government showed up and said your claim is your claim. Your claim was what you could defend.
Yeah.
Man.
Plus, her house is made of stone. That's not a cheap thing.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a framed up house. Masonry, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very, very rich. She's got a servant and all that.
We're going to say servant and just not use the other word.
Yeah.
I don't think
that's
that
what
was
I figured.
I think that was I'm trying to remember, when did slavery end in New York? And I'll have to look it up.
But I can appreciate just she's being stubborn here. It seems weird that she's holding onto the bed, but that's the bed that she and her husband slept in, so it's sentimental.
Right.
You can see the woodwork on it at that time. That kind of woodwork, kind of lathing the like tops to the bedpost. That's not a cheap thing.
No.
Plus, she's just a stubborn old lady that's just, my property is my property. I would high five somebody like that and buy him a drink, probably take him out on the town, say something inappropriate. Never mind. I wouldn't say that.
But yeah, and then he shows up, Gil to the rescue again, right? Like, no, we're going now.
Plus, this guy, I can't remember his character's name.
He's kind of funny too. But
he's just like, no, I actually care about you more than just flirting with you, so I'm getting you out of here.
Right.
Okay, so I had to look this up because it makes sense. From like 1770 to 1785, the New York legislature was abolishing slavery gradually. So New York was going through a transition. Like any slave before the revolution was given their freedom, for example. Also, there were New York was one of the biggest places where escaped slaves went to. So.
Yeah.
This guy, based preacher again. Show up or we'll hang you.
And you see this lady here holding the gun too. She's ready.
Yeah. Yes,
she must someone's cap off.
It's mostly, at least I think, between her and Mrs. McClenner. I keep looking over here to get it because I want to give her the respect because that is the best character. It's the older ladies that are holding the guns, just ready to do stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And the time that his wife spent around her has rubbed off because she's one of the ones who does it too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I mean, and there are others. It's not all of them, but there are others. Right. I want to give that credit too because when I can guarantee you, most women then and now, if somebody was besieging the building that held your kids, they'd step up and with a gun and do whatever they had to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, at a certain point, they show it. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And that would have been normal. That would have been historically accurate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the guys, those specific group of guys, went in there to get something other than blood. Well, I'll put it
the women put on coats to make it look like there's more men in the fort.
Great. It's a good idea. Yeah, man. Yeah. Indeed. And it's better than cowering in the corner. She's actually trying to help.
Oh, yeah.
And this isn't the first time she's been in a super high stress situation. But this right here, where he's like forcing them to sing and do prayers and stuff in the back.
I would say no. Children, be quiet and don't announce your presence through song.
Right. But then again, it could also be like a morale thing. Like as long as you hear them going, you're reminded why you're out here doing this or something. I don't know.
Well, and as a religious thing, I get it.
Yeah. Speaking of religion,
hey, idle hand of the devil's playground.
Yeah. True.
See, what does he say? I'm just trying to keep this out of the hands of the heathens. Beware the heathen. Beware the heathen beneath your own breast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fling it away.
Yeah. And he cringes when it breaks. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. But yeah, he's still super stoic and very pious at this point. The preacher.
Oh, but he put on his tricorn hat and he's got a gun.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a good shot. It looks like here.
Yeah, he is.
I love when he shoots the red coat off his horse. And he's like, it's pulling a little to the left.
Right. Yeah, he makes jokes now.
I don't remember the movie or TV show, but it was like a kind of this similar time period. And the priest was shooting people, and he would constantly like give them a benediction after he killed them.
Right. Hey, by the way, that house burning where they were showing that a while ago, I think that was part of the IMDb trivia stuff. They were talking about one of the shots where the house was burning, and then they actually did like a painting in the post to make it look better. I don't know. So like,
yeah, because that did look a little bit off,
right?
Because leading up to it, you hear a couple guys saying, "Oh, they're at my house. Oh, and I'm right next door." So they're not showing it because I think they had a fort in one house. And this, this looked a little bit off. So I thought this might have been some kind of special effect.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a painting over top of that, but they actually burned a building. So
they just added to it.
Right.
Okay.
Probably.
I mean, it's not a bad shot, especially considering 39.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, man, this is really well done. I just can't say that enough, man. I was enthralled the entire movie. Like, look at that shot, man. It's beautiful. That's like some textbook art class. This is how you set up your shots, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Jacob, you said specifically the black smoke, because I don't think you'd get that from just logs burning, but it definitely makes it more ominous.
And John Ford is like known for those big, fast, cinematic shots.
Nice.
I mean, it really sells the scale.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, as Jay says, it's almost like John Ford knows what he's doing.
Right.
Ford.
Yeah.
Okay, start shooting at the guys on the wall now.
Right. Exactly.
Get Henry down. We're really shooting. We want to get Henry out of the way.
I love that Mrs. McClinner is just right up there at the very front, just like,
No F's given. Well, you know, I mean,
you took my house. I'm going to take your life.
Right. Not necessarily the best decision on her part.
Yeah, but I get it.
Me too.
You got to defend the wall. There's a situation where you have to defend the wall. They break that wall, you're dead. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these guys laying down with the ladders, they got a plan. Second wave, while they're distracted by the other people that just started running, wait a couple seconds and then we'll run up with our ladders. Almost made it. A couple of them did make it.
Well, I mean, when you're trying to besiege, unless you can breach the wall, you throw men at it until you get someone gets in.
Yep. And it's not like they had a bunch of siege towers or something back then to just go over the wall with.
Nope.
Oh, not here. They didn't anyway.
Well, we're in that interesting period between when people would have that stuff practically,
right?
And, you know what I mean? Like between periods,
right? Yeah, there's no catapults or trebuchets or anything. These guys are using cannons.
I know I mentioned Firefly earlier accidentally. I didn't intend to, but the priest shooting that and making a comment remind me a lot of Shepherd book. You know, when they say, preacher, I'm pretty sure the Bible says something a good deal about murder. He goes, but it's a little bit misty on kneecaps. So he just spends the next little bit shooting dudes in kneecaps.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine if one dude knew how to make a catapult, like in that before it? Just
right.
Like the whole thing changes. It's like the Indian would be like, "How are they shooting this stuff at us? Just burning rocks from over the wall." You know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, they do end up breaching the door here. They're like, "Yeah, go ahead, Jay." Yeah.
They put a bunch of stuff in. They don't really show what they're putting down the barrel. They just put a bunch of stuff down there. Then they put a ball and chain in there.
Well, no, you get the ball and chain's a real thing. Like, so you put the blasting powder. Again, going off of memory, put the blasting powder at the bottom. Then you have to pack something over it so it builds pressure when you light it. Then you put what you want to shoot out on top of that, like the ball and chain for anti-personnel, buckshot, or cannonball, whatever you put. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Indians they shoot look a lot better than they would in reality.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, agreed. You shoot a chain shot through a group like that, people are split in half.
Oh yeah, easy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Big swath of them too, because it wouldn't have been just a couple of dudes on the other side of that door.
Yeah, and this seems like a dumb move to open the door to let people through, but if you can open it up, devastate most of what comes through, and still have time to shut the door, it keeps the door from being completely beaten down and broken open for longer.
Yeah. The only thing that is missing alongside of the cannon, there'll be lines of dudes with guns.
With rifles,
right.
After the cannon's done, to release volleys of musket ball to make sure no one else is coming in afterwards.
Right. Yep, and agreed. Grape shot.
James right here. Yeah. Chain shot, common anti-infantry load, as well as naval loading to use against sails en masse. And I know that thanks to Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Grape shot too. Those guys were mean back then.
Yeah, that's nasty. That's nasty.
Well, that's what you had to do. That's what war was.
This guy, like, showing up in his full, like, military regalia. You're now finally getting kind of an idea of, like, how important he is.
Also, notice the effect. Right. That's, like, well lit, but he's still shrouded in darkness.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So good. Completely believable. All this stuff. I was completely into it. There was no point where I had to convince myself to believe.
He's like a red coat Darth Vader, you know? It's like.
Yep. And here it becomes. Remember when I was talking about that was a bad decision?
Yep.
Yeah.
She took an arrow to the knee.
Got an arrow.
Well, to be fair, at least it was her and not one of the combatant people who were more, you know.
Well, you know what? I'm going to pull a line from the movie Secondhand Lions. She went out with her boots on.
Hey, look, I'm not saying I want to be murdered, but I'd rather die instantly than get old and rot.
Agreed.
You know?
I'd rather get old and then, you know, die well. Let's do a combination, like 50-50.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Well, I'm saying, I know whether it's being killed in battle for a good reason or, you know, massive heart attack, instant death. You know what I mean? I don't want to, like, those lingering deaths. Well, and when you get old, you get a lot of those lingering deaths, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this poor guy right here, I don't know his actual character's age or his actor's age, but he seems to be a decent amount younger than her. But what was kind of like innocent flirting with like the older lady obviously was more real between these two.
Right.
And he's having to just hold her and say goodbye. And that's
the dude, that's Ward Bond, the dude Ward Bond's playing. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's been in like a couple hundred movies.
Yeah.
So Adam Hartman was his character's age. Yeah. Or his character's name. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, her right here. Her and him had really good on-screen chemistry, and that was a good culmination. I liked it. I thought that was a good decision by the writers to do it that way.
Yeah, and it was a small thing. It was just kind of like an instant dance around flirting thing to like, I'm saving you from being, you know, dumb and stubborn and standing in your burning house to, man, I'm saying goodbye to you.
Her last words are calling for her husband. Her dead husband.
Yeah. Out of nowhere, dude. That was kind of haunting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well done.
I mean, that does kind of lend itself to what so many stories that other people have told, where when you have loved ones go, they start talking to people who have been gone for forever.
Man.
Yeah. So now they got to send a runner to get help.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And this scene was, like I said, was planted by Henry Ford's character surviving the way he did, you know?
Right.
That he's that physically fit, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. But he's not
first the old fella. It's like the old fella volunteers first.
He was kind of cool. He'd pop up every now and then. Like in the dance scene, he popped up. And he was a nice little comic relief there a couple times.
Well, I mean, and there is a certain amount of logic to choosing him. He's been around a long time. He's survived in the wilderness. He probably knows the area better than most people. He might not move the fastest, but if he understands the terrain and he's lived in it for so long, he could probably get through there.
Yep.
So it's not a totally crazy idea to choose him.
I mean, if he gets through the lines, he has a good shot. It's getting through the lines that's to be the issue. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
But in a world where it's so harsh like it was back then, the old man, you listen to the old man. There's a reason why he lived to be old, right? I believe it's been brought up before on this stream.
The logical thing here is, why didn't Brick Brat go? Like, he would have been the perfect guy to me, like, who could have infiltrated that whole area. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, this is brutal.
But then again, probably also well known as being one of them too.
Well, no, but I mean, again, you don't want to be seen by anyone. Like, think of it, you know, it's like the further you get out, the thinner their lines are going to get. Like, you know what I mean? So the further you get away from the fort, the better chance you have not encountering someone, or maybe just one guy that you could take out and keep running. You know?
Right. Well, I don't think any of them thought that they were going to get through the lines undetected, which is why he's like, no, seriously, let me out there. There's none of them that can catch me on foot. Just none of them. And which I thought was kind of cool, kind of a Chad thing to do, you know. But this scene, this scene, I think,
this is also one of the scenes that made me think of just like, oh, this is not really a stunt. They just put a dude in there with hopefully breakaway straps and started lighting the hay that he's laying on fire and said, hey, if it gets too hot, run away.
Right.
Mr. Ford, there's a lot of hay on me. You sure this is safe? Sure, it's good.
Sure. It'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Whole lot of guys with buckets ready to throw that water on you.
Look, I've lit a lot of burn piles. Sometimes they go up instantly. Sometimes they take forever. It doesn't matter how much you think you've prepared for it. That whole thing could have gone up immediately.
Right.
And Ford's like, okay, what if he really does burn down? We'll have a guy ready to shoot him in case he gets on fire.
Right. Because you can see the color of that straw. That's all dried out.
Yeah, like even if you spray it down, you have to soak it.
Right. Like that stuff will go up like right now. Agreed. My mom has had a horse farm for the better part of 3 decades now, and they go through a lot of stuff like that. So I would completely agree.
Even this guy taking what is obviously a fake arrow, but is very real on fire.
Yeah.
That's not a small thing.
Yeah.
Right.
No. At least the wound gets cauterized, you know?
Yeah.
It's true.
Ouchie. I mean, back then, a burn like that would get infected real easy, man.
So this is another thing that I think was, if not intentional, this was another thing that reminded me of Last of the Mohicans, is when this priest kind of like, you know, Father, forgive me, and he shoots this innocent man to keep him from suffering.
Well, the scene in The Last of the Mohicans, the movie, the 90s one, which did not happen in the book, by the way. Is where the British soldier, like the Indians want to sacrifice one of them to appease the spirit, so to speak, to save one of the daughters, in turn one of the daughters. And the British guy who's translating, it says they want Hawkeye to do.
They want long rifle. Yeah,
he's a valuable sacrifice. But he says, no, take me. I'm a British colonel. Blah blah blah. And because he knows that Hawkeye can save the actual girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he ends up saving him having to suffer being burned to death.
And he shoots him. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do want to point out that that this priest, pastor, whatever he is in whatever religion they are, he shot a dude earlier and didn't seem to have any remorse from it. After he does this, the next time we see him, he's broken. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily that he has taken a life, as he has taken an innocent life.
Right.
And I think that was a fantastic
and too, he knew this. He knew the guy too.
Right. Yeah, that's his long time.
They were fighting right beside each other before.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't care how much you think that or know that you're saving somebody from suffering. I can't imagine putting somebody I care about in my crosshairs and pulling the trigger.
Agreed.
Would mess me up.
Agreed. Which is what I think a lot of the reason why I like the beginning of the Walking Dead stuff. Because a lot of those people got ended by like a friend coming up and everybody's like, oh, shoot him. Like, yeah, right. If you were in that situation and that was your mom or something, it would be way different.
Yeah.
Right. And this was his, longtime friend, man. I couldn't imagine the kind of courage it would take to do that. Like, because he's afraid. You can see the look in his eyes. You can hear it in his voice and the things that he's saying and his body language. This guy, he didn't want to do that, but there was no other way. Yeah. And then Gil to the rescue again. This guy, what a chat.
And like you said, Matt, we've already seen his survival instincts, but ignoring that, even he just doesn't want to see anybody else have to go through this.
Well, he's this is again his survival skills, instincts, but also his mysterious background. I'm sure is going to be in the book someday if I have time to read it. Is like he's one of the community leaders now. The general is dead, Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and he knows that they're going to die in there unless they get help. So he's got to step. No one else is stepping up. Sometimes, okay, I hate to do this. Like anyone else besides me, know Naruto, right? So,
yeah.
When the second Hokage had to sacrifice himself to save his 6 students, he is going to pick one of them to be Hokage. And so, but he doesn't say he's going to sacrifice himself. He talks to him and says, from here on out, so he says, someone has to stay behind so the rest of us can get away. And the first person who volunteers is Hiruzen, who becomes the third Hokage. And that's why the second chose him to be a successor, because he stepped up and willing to self-sacrifice himself for the good of everyone. Right. And that's the same type of scene. He's willing to sacrifice himself for the good of everyone, proving he's a worthy leader.
Right.
Yeah, usually I won't say usually, but very often in history, you find the people who have stepped up and been some of the greatest leaders are people who didn't necessarily want it.
Right. Well, and not only that, but I'll put a spin on here that hasn't been brought out yet. He's not just fighting for himself or his community. That's his wife and kid in there, man. Yeah. These people are all dead if he doesn't do it. Yeah. So once you become a father, it becomes a lot less about yourself and more about them.
Well, and that's a whole another thing that he has to deal with is, do I do this to save my son, but also risk dying and let him live without a father?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that is a terrible thing, I would imagine, to have to go through as a father, is to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. I like the way they did that, though. It was on a line, and it just kind of slid in real fast, but it looked really cool. I wasn't expecting that.
And cool. They will, in a modern movie, they would belabor this chase. It would be 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
There'll be like a running sniper fight. There'll be people coming out of nowhere ambushing him. He'd have 16 hand-to-hand fights. And
he's got a beard by the end.
I'm impressed enough that he ran, I mean, obviously further than we know.
Oh, yeah.
But
cardio,
just running that long, that is impressive enough. You don't need to have all that stuff like you were saying, Matt. Just running through the forest, as Jay said earlier, running on, through the forest and the uneven ground is way worse than running on a track.
Certainly.
But they're conveying that he probably did have a couple of other encounters along the way, but they don't have to show that because they're showing a desperate running for your life. We know it's happening.
You know what I mean? Between the lighting, because he went out before dark, we saw the sunrise, it's daylight now, he's taking the chance, and in a dead, like life or death foot chase, to take the chance to drink water for 5 seconds could end you. So he's taking that chance. So obviously he's been going for a while.
Right.
And this is an interesting historical tie-in, which maybe had the character. So let's say, in my theory, is that Henry Ford's character fought in the French and Indian War. Okay, so American Indians were known to be able to
wear out right here.
Yeah, he does.
Well, they're conveying that the right now they're conveying if he doesn't get him there, he's not going to get him.
Look at that shot, man.
Because look at the clouds. He's running into the heavens. The freedom is over the hill.
Right.
Through the gateway of darkness into the heavens, if you look at the framework.
Now, this part here reminds me of another movie called The Naked Prey. It's set in Africa, and this white guy gets captured by tribes people, and they make him run for his life as they chase him down. Really good movie.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, did we
1965? Okay.
What was the movie? It was a John Wayne movie, where they go after the girl who's been kidnapped by the Indians, and she became a wife. Remember, Jacob?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, he had the surgery. Didn't he have to have a race or something with an Indian at the end of it? Do you remember in the right movie? So he had to go to a contest with the Indians to see if he can get her back.
Searchers. Jay, right? Jay had an answer.
I don't think so. He confronts an Indian and kills him, but there's not a.
Because I know. Okay, the searchers they wind up leaving the girl there because she's assimilated, basically.
I don't know.
It sounds familiar. That sounds familiar, but I don't remember what it came from.
Yeah, this is a beautiful shot too. The way they had this set up with the lighting coming in through the window, but you can also tell the soft light from the front too. But it's it's just really well done. I really like this guy's style. More than I remember when I saw movies like this when I was younger. I like this style.
I like that specifically with her is maybe I'm reading too much into it, But the way she's gripping that gun is, you can tell she's afraid, but she's still got the coat on, so she's willing to fight. I mean, it's this like dichotomy of like her two natures,
right?
Because
there are people right outside the door right now.
Her son is there, so
right.
she wants to fight to protect him, but obviously she's afraid, because who wouldn't be? I don't care who you are.
Agreed. And I don't think she's never ended a person before.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, and there's guys right outside the door, opening the door currently, and she's flipping out. And there's all the other women and children are in here, the ones that were singing from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, the interesting thing, because that's the church basically that they're in now.
Right.
The church is built the European medieval style with battlement ports to dump hot oil on people. You're not boiling water, not oil.
Yeah, we see that.
Yeah.
Good call, by the way, when they did that.
Well, that would have been a standard design. That would have been like, that would have been in the basic blueprints the priest would have taken from Europe. It would be like, battlement here, it's like,
of
course,
makes sense.
Was a refuge from,
Here's a good look at it. These guys are in elbow deep in it, and he has to choke this guy out with his bare hands right into the camera. It's kind of powerful, especially considering the time back then. They didn't really show a whole bunch of stuff like that on screen.
Yeah,
not really. I mean, not like nowadays.
This is great.
They're smiling like, yeah, take this, guys.
right.
Hey, that's gotta hurt, man.
Oh yeah,
hurt. That got boiling water on your skin that much could kill you. Even if it kill you right away, they'll damage. What is it? The percentage of your skin that is third degree burn, it's a chance of you dying or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know the percentage, but at a certain point, because it is the largest organ on your body just goes into shock and just shuts down.
Right.
Yeah. And here comes the cavalry.
Yes, man.
Except they're not on horseback.
And you can tell a tonal shift in what's going on when these guys arrive. It's like the Eagles coming in, which appropriately enough is the Americans.
Proper Continental Army.
Right. Regulars. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she just killed a chief. It looked like.
Well, you think there would be more guns in there, though?
Yeah. Well, most of the guns are up on the wall, right?
You know why there probably weren't more guns? Because there was like only one actress. Like, we're going to have one actress fire the gun, even though there would be more historically, because we don't want anyone to actually be killed,
Right. America.
It's funny. Yeah. Go back to that shot you just showed, Jacob.
So good.
That one?
Man, this part.
When they open fire when they're running the gate, look at this. They're shooting up to make sure they don't hit anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that set, though, man. Look at all those bodies. It's just extras laying there.
Yeah.
Extras. They're dead people.
That's right.
Well, yeah. Right, so your role is to lay here on the ground and hope that the next 20 people who come running through that door don't step on you.
Right. Well, and by the way, everything's going to be on fire.
Ford goes, get all the dead people from the previous shooting and lay them on the floor now.
That's right. Hey, all them guys that got hit by the cannonball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like his friend died. Or no, that's a different guy.
I mean, regardless, no matter winning something like a battle of this scale, there would be fewer survivors than dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine the smells in that place. Oh. Not for me. A lot of scorched hair and skin and a lot of
this is where the priest is broken.
Yeah.
It's like, I killed a man. And I have to think that he probably shot that gun way more times than we saw. But my assumption is that the thing that is messing with him most is the fact that he shot an innocent man. Despite it being to save him a torturous death.
Right.
Being like a man of God like that would weigh heavy on his soul.
Yep. Well, according to a lot of the Christian beliefs, murder is a cardinal sin. Like that's it.
Right.
You don't go. So depending on if he forgives himself or not, he might never have been right again.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not murder, though. That's,
Well, I mean, I don't know. He's taking it like it is, right? I don't know.
He's taking it because he killed someone he knew that he didn't want to kill. I mean, that's a reaction to me,
I mean, we can get to dogmatic definitions for forever.
No, I'm just saying. I think his psychological reaction is this guy who is my friend, who I'm supposed to be the shepherd of and protect. I had to kill to protect him, and it's really. I can only imagine. It's like if your doctor had to do the same thing.
I couldn't imagine shooting a friend, dude.
He finally hones in on the kid crying and realizes, oh hey,
right. Like, I can't find my woman. Oh, well, she's probably unconscious somewhere. Go. That's what she does when she's off screen sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, she's also been through hell, so this time I'm going to give her a pass.
Well, and
I would be taking a nap too. I would be taking a heavy nap.
Right.
Remember, during all of this, she has to breastfeed the baby.
Right.
Constantly.
Right.
So. And
change its diaper and all that, and the baby's probably flipping out because that was definitely loud as hell.
Yeah, baby's got tinnitus for sure.
Certainly. Yeah, there was gunshots going off in the room, like a bunch of them.
And so, I love how John Carter.
Have you checked the fainting counts? Exactly. Like, she's a strong, super strong female. He couldn't have gone out to do what he had to do before the run. He couldn't have done that without her. Yeah. So she kept up appearances.
This is great.
Gave her.
This is like one of the best scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're looking for what? Caldwell, the guy with the eye patch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Blueback's just like, hey.
Blueback went out there in the middle of the battle, went through all the lines, and got the one MF. Like, remember, that guy's hiding in the background, way out there, and he went out there and went after him and got him.
And they don't have to say it; they just show it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's never confirmed verbally. It just kind of
And it is a nice touch because it's a character that has a very noticeable trait, being his eye patch. Yep. So just bring that in and say, "Here you go."
Yep.
Yeah, but it adds a level of badassery to Blueback too. You know what I mean? Like he went through the whole battle. He exfiltrated through the whole battle and got that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to save you, but I'm going to go get the guy that's getting you.
That's right.
The real bad guy didn't die, and he even fought in the War of 1812.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes for a nice story when he does.
Yeah, it does.
It is a nice touch, and among this film that is, if we're honest, pretty heavy, especially for 1939 throughout the entire thing. It is a brief little moment of comedy. The way that Blueback kind of gives that smile.
Like nowadays, it would have been like Arnold Schwarzenegger cutting his head off with a big
right.
Claiming his patch as a war thing after they duked it out and like hitting each other with trees.
Now, if we're going Schwarzenegger back in the day, he would have just held up the eye patch and said, "I haven't seen him."
Right.
Yeah.
So they bring in the new flag.
He's letting off steam. He's letting off steam.
He had some of the best one-liners, I swear.
And I do appreciate this. As awkward as it is with the 13 stripes for the colonies and 13 stars for the Union, yeah, that was all awkward. But when all the people here that did the fighting, and not just these guys that show up to kind of take the credit, just yank that flag away and kind of claim it for themselves.
Right. And everybody loves it. Look, everyone.
Yeah.
They all fought hard that made the chain.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
This the chain guy.
That's right.
I'm sorry because I'm watching a lot of pro wrestling recently. For the Indian thing, John Cena holds up the eye patch and he goes, "You can't see him."
Yeah, right.
And these old films, it does very often. Sometimes the ends just kind of feel rushed or awkward. But I sometimes appreciate it. I like this.
Yeah.
This is not an overly complex story. It knows what it is. It tells its story. It gets to the end, and that's it. It doesn't drag it out. Yep. Doesn't over embellish it. It for the most part, especially for the time, I'm going to give it that caveat. Especially for the time, respects its audience. It doesn't treat them like children.
Mm-hmm.
It's not overly complex. There have been far more complex films since then that I would rank above this. But dang, if I didn't really enjoy this.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's a solid movie. What makes it more interesting, obviously, so many great actors who I enjoy. Like, the story itself isn't that intriguing to me. You know what I mean? But I love a lot of the actors in it. And I'm not a historical fiction nut, but this very nicely tells a slice of life of what was going on in that region. You know,
slice of life is a great description of it.
Yeah, and like I said, and all these great actors who I can't. The last movie I could remember that had so many great actors in it was Black Hawk Down, and since like this entire century we're in now, there's like one actor and then a bunch of nobodies. You know,
like you're Saving Private Ryan's and.
Well, it was before Black Hawk Down. That was a year before it. Right. But
I agree.
No, but I'm saying it's like there was the 20th century was like all these movies with all these great actors. Like we mentioned The Longest Day. How many great actors were in that? Henry Fonda was in that. The Duke was in that. And like now you're lucky if you get one, maybe one and a half. And then a whole bunch of no bias. You never, and again, even the reoccurring actors. We talked about several of the reoccurring actors in this one, right? Who we've seen if you see a lot of old films, now who are the reoccurring actors the last 20 years? No one,
Yeah.
Bunch of garbage. Yeah. And then Robert Downey Jr.
Well, he's a top actor. You know what I mean? He's not a recurring. Right. Yeah.
True.
But yeah.
There aren't many stars left. I agree. Yeah. Like you've got like Hemsworth. I've heard people talk about him a lot. I've heard people talk about Cavill a lot.
They're not all in the same movie anymore, unless it's like
unless they're making an Expendables movie, in which case it's still garbage anyway.
Right. Or it's Adam Sandler and all his buddies.
Yeah. Or they're trying to make an event movie like the Avengers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like where was it? The 20th century, you could find every year these ensemble great acting cast movies.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, because like you said, this is not an overly complex story. It is basically a slice of life.
Right.
It's living through a really trying and potentially awful time of history.
Right.
And it is glorified, obviously, because it's Hollywood, but also old Hollywood, which, glorified kind of everything. But it's not unenjoyable. It's not offensive. It's not bad. There are great story moments in it. There are many great character moments in it.
Yeah, agreed. There's some pretty funny jokes too.
Yeah.
So, here's the part about the farmhouse. The nearby farmhouse, the burning house is real, but it was fully engaged. What? That it was hard to make out the house itself. A hand-painted overlay of the house was created in post-production in order to enhance the image. The extreme amount of black smoke was created by burning tires behind the house. So many tires were used that they created 3 times as much smoke as the house itself.
Right. Yikes, dude.
So that makes sense. If the house is so lit on fire, it would have kind of like whited out everything. You wouldn't have been able to see the structure. So they painted a structure over the burning flame. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Yep.
Like one of the first special effects enhancement things.
So they took care of it in post.
It makes sense. Smart move.
Actually, this movie is in the public domain. This might have been one we could actually just watch live and talk about. You know what I mean?
True. But is it really worth? Yeah. Because is the music in public domain?
Well,
that's where they'll get
even
you
if it,
music.
Even if it all is, does YouTube really care about public domain when they can just flag you anyway?
Well, let's see if I want to search for the movie on YouTube and just see if the movie itself is on YouTube.
There was a trailer. I didn't see any movie. I looked for it on YouTube.
Don't go on Mohawk. Buy or rent.
Right.
Yeah. So the YouTube has a buy or rent for it.
Yeah, right.
There are other like instances if you search. Because everything's live on YouTube if you know how to find it. You know what I mean? But
everything's somewhere.
Anybody could flag it.
Yeah.
Anybody could flag it too. I mean,
yeah, he's right.
Just for the sake of flagging something.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you should test it. You should test it, Jacob. I'm just curious as to how long something's to be in the public domain for them to stop flagging if you decide to do a watch party on a movie from 1920s or whatever.
Well, Jay says, trust me, being in the public domain will not save you from YouTube bots who run into that constantly on B-sides. So, I mean, it can be public domain and somebody else can just decide to flag you anyway, and YouTube might not necessarily take your side on it. So usually better to play it safe, I would imagine.
Well, by default, they don't take your side on it. It's because it's an automatic flag.
Yeah.
Flagging, it's not a person flagging you, it's an algorithm.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I think that music has a different set of rules that you have to follow. So that's why you'll get shows that go on to places like Netflix or something that has different music in the background. Like Scrubs is a great example of that. That they didn't have the rights to the music. So, but when they put Scrubs up, they had to change the music in the background. It's actually super noticeable.
Yeah, the broadcast versus the DVD versus the streaming. There's differences in all three.
Yep.
Well, when the WWE or F back then bought all the old pro wrestling programming, they had to spend time like digitally removing all of the music and putting in like their own music because the music itself was like would have been the copyright issue, not the actual wrestling per se.
Right.
They own the wrestling footage, but not the music the wrestlers were using.
Right. Especially if they're using from a specific band.
Yeah.
Like, yep. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, man. I've had to deal with a lot of that music copyright stuff. It's kind of a pain.
It's better safe than sorry, even than when you're working with a trailer, which should be public when muted with no music.
Well, I heard someone say that if you play the trailers through YouTube, through Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, it's almost impossible for YouTube to pick it up because of what Elon did to make it so you can't like he blocked indirectly searching through X externally now because he doesn't want people cheating off of it, like like using his content without being paid. So like if you post, that was his big dispute with Subscribestar because Subscribestar would like basically steal content from X and just post it on their site by linking directly to it. A lot of people play trailers through Twitter now and seem to say they don't get flagged. So
I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. Wow. I would give this movie somewhere around a 7.5 because there was a couple things here and there that weren't exactly what I was expecting in the, like tonal shifts that happened out of nowhere. Music that was a little bit too overbearing at certain points. But there were points in this movie that I would give a 10 out of 10. Seriously, like some of the character development moments, especially, the acting was just knocked it out of the park for me.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. Maybe a little bit less, but not much. Provisionally based kind of on the time period that it was made and kind of the standards. Oh, we lost Jacob. Oh, no. I was just about to throw it back to him.
The British and the Mohawk have gotten him.
But yeah, kind of on the time period and the standards, different ideas of what makes good film and things like that. So factoring all that in, I think I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold it to the same standard as what we have, over the last. Okay, hold on. Ignoring the last 15 years, the last 20 years before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily hold it the same against that, but
yep. Yeah, like there was a couple lines delivered by their Indian friend that I was just like, what did he say? And I had to back the movie up a couple times to hear him because his English is so broken. But I suppose it's accurate, but man, come on.
Yeah, that dude was a chief. He was
he's a famous Indian actor.
Chief John Bigtree.
Yeah.
And I forget which tribe. Let's see. He died in 1967 in Onondaga Indian Reservation in New York.
Man.
So I don't suppose he was properly Mohawk or anything like that, but
right.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was putting on much of an accent. Maybe in some of the lack of like.
Well, I think if I got the timing right, this would have been early in his career, so probably he had a very heavy accent.
Right.
Because I remember Arnold's him in later stuff.
Things. Right.
Yeah. I remember him, this guy in later stuff that he talking a bit more clearly. So.
Yeah.
But then again, he could have just been told to do that. We don't know. You know.
Right. True. That could have been the direction.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking some of the exact dialogue, leaving out certain words and things like that to make it a little bit more stilted was probably what was told to him, but the actual accent of the words coming out was not put on. I didn't get that feeling.
Right.
Yeah, I hope Jacob comes back because I don't have an end stream button.
Oh, I don't either, actually.
we have to keep talking and hoping.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that he was a very good addition to the movie. He was definitely more positive than negative overall. Mm-hmm. He had some great lines, like when he was like, "Yeah, take the women out in the woods and get them away from their husband." Like that was hilarious, dude. I was not expecting the bass to come out like that. No stops with that guy. Here, beat your wife with this stick. You know.
I'm gonna keep an eye out for Jacob in messages if he sends me anything. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and posit this when he pops back in, just in case he has other issues. We just throw it over to him and we can wrap things up.
Yeah, he said it's got heavy rain. Yeah, I just got that too.
Yeah, I was watching rain. I've got some moving in my area too, so I was looking at that. Yeah, I've got some access to his stuff, but
hopefully back.
Heavy rain.
Jacob, we're going to throw it over to you, and you can wrap us up just in case we lose you again. We don't want to be sitting here and having to talk for 3 hours while you wait to get power back.
Right. Well, did you give your rating?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like maybe 6.5, 7. Like I said, provisionally based on kind of like the tropes of the time and things like that. It's definitely worth a watch. I enjoyed it.
Right. What'd you think of the score?
Yeah.
Agreed with what you said. There are some things over the top that I think are a holdover from kind of previous films and things like that. Right. But I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying it's like a 7 out of 10. I mean, I love the actors. One of the big things when I rate movies, will I ever rewatch it again? I'll probably watch this movie, assuming I don't die in the next 3 days or whatever. You know, like I live long enough to watch all the movie. You know what I mean? Like you might say I'll rewatch that and like and maybe you won't get around to it for a year, but then you might not live another year because lightning hits you or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But like I'll definitely, if I ever get around to reading the book, I will probably rewatch it after I read the book, just to see what they changed and what
Right. Yeah, because it's always different. They have to go, from one medium to the next. But I would be interested to see that myself.
When I do my Sharp reviews, I talk about this. I don't know if you guys are following those or not, but I talk all the time. Like, I get the impression with every single, because they're 2-hour movies, like 3 episodes per season, like the segments you're skipping over, either they filmed it and didn't put it in, or it's in the book and they're just like if you read the book, it would fill it in, but you're not missing. There seems to be no must occur, but you don't need to see them in the movie per se. You know what I mean?
Right. Agreed.
There's a lot of stuff like that in this where I'm wondering if there's scenes in the book between the scenes we see, so that would show things we know must occur, but they just cut them out because you didn't have to have them in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or certain things that they just showed on screen instead of telling you.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Dempsey, I just noticed what you've been holding for a while. Drumsticks.
Yes, sir.
Nice touch.
Yeah, it's I have a nervous tick with it. I don't mean to.
I brought mine out because before the show, Jay asked, "Do you experience drumming along your Mohawk? Try extra strength Excedrin."
Sorry, a lot of rudiments.
Well, guys,
a lot of rudiment practice.
If anybody's watching this later on, everybody's links are in the info below. So check them out. And next week I'll be doing Amadeus.
Nice.
Good movie.
Yes.
And
That's cool. That's awesome.
Just plug your stuff real quick, guys.
Yeah, plug your stuff.
Go ahead. Just plug your stuff real quick.
Most Mondays in the evenings, you can find me on After the Weekend. I don't know exactly what we've got coming up this next week, and I'm always kind of popping up everywhere else. So just follow me on Twix at Beard of Liberty. And if I have any updates, you can find them there.
Nice.
Cool. Matt.
Say.
Okay, so I'm ongoing reviews with Shogun. My episode 8 review will probably be out tomorrow. And Sharp TV show. It's an awesome TV show. I'm usually on Roman's channel on Thursdays, but we don't have a show this Thursday. I do my Friday afternoon live stream at 3 o'clock, so 3 to 4, which Dempsey, I believe you show up there quite a bit for me. And I'll be on Jacobs in 2 weeks for Zulu.
Nice.
And then on the 30th, I believe, for one of my all-time favorite movies, Sergeant York.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. Great movie.
I watch that movie at least once every year.
Nice. They say I am. I'm a regular over on Ryan Roger Athay's channel with reality-based music every Sunday. It's usually around 5 p.m. Eastern. This last week we did 4 p.m. Eastern. So it's in there somewhere. Usually right around the time when Mrs. Sassy's show's over. But I will also be on Roman's channel coming up here pretty soon. He's doing our favorite metal bands from 2000 on. Yeah. And I have a lot to say about that. Metal's kind of my wheelhouse, man. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about it. I've actually got like three pages of notes right now.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Well, I only had like 1.5, and then he put it off for 2 weeks, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going out now." So yeah. I know a lot of people online are saying that their favorite bands are from before 2000, and I totally understand because a lot of mine are too. But there was some great stuff that's been coming out, and you should go check out Roman's show.
There's a lot of bleed over too, though.
Well,
yeah, agreed.
I won't say who they are, but my favorite metal band is actually just barely a post-2000 band.
Yeah, right. And Jay makes a good point. Yeah, like what is even metal anymore? There's like 800,000 different subgenres of it. So I tried to pick a whole bunch. I even have a vegan metal band on my list. So it'll be a lot of fun. You should stop by, check it out. And I'm also going to be putting out an album within the next year or something like that. From a project we're doing called Against the Stream, which myself, my son, and my friend Jim, and we got a couple other friends coming in too. A buddy of mine, Garwood's going to play bass for us. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Excellent.
It's a good time. So,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, nice. You can check me out, Real Drunken Poet on Twix. Let's get on there and talk smack. It's funny. Yeah, a little bit.
Metal,
No, it's actually pretty brutal.
Really?
Thanks for having me, man.
Well, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, guys, and good discussion. And thanks to the chat and Jay Goodwin for hanging in there till the last.
Yeah, and Jay's MVP.
Time. Have a good week, everybody.
I wish you all luck and fortune.
Yep. Later, y'all.